Hello and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy, episode 406 for the week of June 18th, 2019. My name is Ryan Higgins. Who's here with me this week?
Brock Sager.
An empty chair.
And Kevin.
And Charlie.
Gosh, stealing his and again. What's
I was saying the and in response to the chair thing.
What the hell's Toby?
He's avoiding you.
He came to the store the other day?
Yeah, but you apparently
I scared him.
You scared him.
That's all right. That's all right. Anyone want like 3 boxes of free comic books? They're all Toby's.
Are they paid for?
Yeah, of course.
Does he still have his Tweeterhead Supergirl here?
No, he took that.
No.
Oh,
yeah, I think he took that.
I'm out.
Anyway, we've got way too much crap to talk about tonight, so let's hit it. A bunch of news stories. We are going to be covering Dark Phoenix, all full spoiler cast in the back half. It's not going to be like a full episode. We'll talk about it for a bit. A lot of questions, so let's get to some of the stuff. It has been a busy week for...
And everything dropped after our podcast last week on Wednesday.
Always. DC had a really busy week. Tons of new announcements. I wanted to talk something before. I have a couple of Marvel things to cover first. Marvel's been doing all these things for their 80th anniversary, and the bunch of one-shots, and interest has been pretty minimal on any of this stuff. I know we're getting ready to do our orders for the Marvel Comics 1000, and orders are like nobody cares.
But they're going to be super psyched for 1001, right?
I'll tell you what I am personally excited for, Kevin. I have a feeling you're going to be excited for this too. There's going to be a New Mutants one-shot by Bill Sienkiewicz and Chris Claremont.
Let me respond to you by saying New Mutants is a blind spot for me. I have never read it.
I feel like that run would have been like right up your alley.
It was right at the peak time, but I just never read it for some reason.
Okay.
I've literally never read an issue of New Mutants.
Wow, yeah.
So I haven't looked up this particular one. Is this like out of the vault, one of the alternate, or is this brand new?
Brand new. I mean, if you guys follow Bill Sienkiewicz on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, this dude is like
amazing.
He is at the top of his game on a level that I can't even describe. Yeah. He has surpassed the best art he's. The
celebrity paintings that he does, even setting aside comic art. Yeah, those are amazing.
He has moved from comic book artist to like fine artist, and I am so excited to see him do some more interior work. So this is going to be. Let's see. This is going to be just an original miniseries with Cannonball, Karma, Mirage, Sunspot, Wolfsbane, and it looks like it's going to have all the main characters from the regular New Mutants comic, right? That was during their time period. I'm assuming, this is going to take place during that time period. This isn't like a weird modern day remake or something. Warlock is kind of the center, and obviously he's one of the big parts of it. I'm very
interested, but I'm also very concerned because the last few times Claremont has written something X-Men for me.
This is a case where I don't even care if there's word balloons. Like, just seeing Bill Sienkiewicz do, even 20 pages of original interior art, like, when the hell?
When was the last time? Elektra Assassin?
I mean, he's like a full issue, start to finish? I don't even know. I don't think there's been anything current, like in the last 20 years or something.
He and Frank Miller did the Daredevil graphic novel. I can't think of the name of it.
I mean, he must have done something on and off. I mean, he's done some short interiors and some little things. He's done a lot of cover work. But actually, him doing full interiors is pretty impressive. Well, and Alex Ross is doing interiors, too, with that Marvel's Anniversary book.
Yeah.
So, and we talked about that the other week.
In fact, I'm only a little upset that, the Marvel's Monster Size won't have that.
Yeah. So that's Marvel is not. We started. I was like, okay, Peter David and Dale Keown Hulk. Okay, that's nice. Clearly that's going to hit a certain amount of people, but we're not Byrne Claremont X-Men yet. Like that, I figure is kind of the far end of if they can actually pull it off by the end of the year, regardless of how bad it will be. Much like Superman Year One on the shelf right now, by Frank Miller and John Romita Jr., the names alone will draw people to buy that book. Just be like, holy shit, it's a new Frank. I mean, they've got it. They have to do it. It's going to happen. Marvel's been pulling out all the stops to get some of these big creators back for their 80th anniversary. So I'd be very surprised if that doesn't happen.
I did see another Marvel kind of retro book, right? The Roger Stern, Loki.
Avengers. Is
that just a one shot?
Yeah. These are all one shots that take place kind of when those things would happen in the regular book. So Just kind of flashback, throwback, Untold Tales. But yeah, no, it looks really, really cool. I'm very, very excited for this. So. I know we're going to have, obviously, this is something that's, by Thursday, we'll know what's going on. Marvel's been teasing something. We got some questions about this later, too. Have you seen any of this?
The Spider-Man?
The Spider-Man thing? Yeah. So we're on day 2, which means tomorrow is day 1, which means they announced it on Thursday. So whatever it is, we'll talk about it next week. No, Marvel is not doing a graphic novel adaptation of the unfilmed Spider-Man 4 Sam Raimi movie. That was the... See, when I saw the 4, I was like, Fantastic Four Spider-Man thing. Like, there's some... Like, that's what I thought. Because what an arbitrary number to start at 4. Like, you don't start countdowns at 4. You start at, like, 3 or 10 or,
Yeah.
That was my initial thought. But
that was also my thought.
Yeah, but obviously not now. We're we'll find out. In a couple days. Also, Marvel related. This will affect at least one person at this table. The Disneyland has officially moved forward with the Marvel theme park expansion into Disney's California Adventure. So if Star Wars Land was not enough, they've been building it. We've known this has been going on for a while, but they've officially started construction and permits and everything. So rumor of a big Spider-Man ride. Don't know what else is going to be there, but I'm sure there'll be at least 2 big rides.
You know what they're going to have?
And
they're going to have Thor's hammer just chilling.
They should.
They should. They absolutely should.
Well, because in Disneyland, right, they have the Sword of the Stone, right? So that'd be amazing if they did that.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. Yeah, I like that idea.
Every time I start to imagine...
I'm going to be so sad if they don't do that now.
Yeah, like the cool things they could do, then I have to reel myself back in because I'm thinking... I get really excited, and then I go like, oh, it has to be MCU.
Right. Well, it doesn't have to be.
Well...
in the Guardians comic and the Guardians ride, right? Clearly that's MCU focused, but they have comic book stuff in there. They have comic books. They have graphic novels. They have,
Star Wars Land, they have tons of the Star Wars graphic novels and stuff like that for sale.
So they
no, what I'm meaning is like
not the ride.
The ride.
Not the attractions. Yeah.
Well, Spider-Man, yeah.
I could
just imagine like a Jack Kirby style ride, the style of like the old Alice in Wonderland ride at the actual Disneyland.
Yeah, I would love
like
that.
A Jack Kirby.
That'd be amazing.
Like
no,
I'm just imagery you could create.
To me, I would, if I was designing the ride, I would have it start in a Jack Kirby style and then go through different. Oh, that would be amazing.
Or what you do is you set up the ride to be like this long, good story, but you allow it to be able to be changed, much like they've started to do what they've done with Haunted Mansion for the seasons. But you could change it to it's all Kirby-esque, or it's all like symbiote suit Spider-Man, or it's all like.
Yeah,
that's also a really good idea.
The entire ride will change based on it's like the.
You don't just do the ride; you do all the costume characters walking around in the different costumes.
You do 70s, 80s, like you can theme it based on.
Yeah, the Spider-Man ride. I remember reading something about it. I think you're supposed to be like. God, it was like something like you're supposed to be in like a contraption that Spider-Man built, and so you're sort of like web swinging with him through the city.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Spider-Mobile.
No,
that's what I thought. I thought it was going to be the Spider-Buggy. I thought it was going to be.
Maybe it will be.
Maybe one could be the Spider.
I don't know.
One you could be going through as a Spider.
I don't know how accurate that is. There's a ride in Tokyo. Is it in Tokyo Disneyland? It's one of the Asian parks that's Star Tours, but Iron Man. So you're in like a Stark built prototype ship that goes with Tony Stark as he's out on some adventure, right? And you're just happen to be the passengers in this adventure.
I'll probably be the only one at the table who says this, or maybe the only one listening who says this, but one of my favorite Disneyland rides, not ironically, legitimately, is the Storybook boat ride.
I like that too.
Do a Marvel version of that with here's Asgard.
little action figures.
Yes. Here's Asgard. Here's the negative zone. Here's New York City. Here's the Baxter Building. Here's Avengers Mansion.
Oh, I'd fucking do that in a heartbeat. Yeah. You kidding me? That'd be so cool.
It's not, quote, exciting.
No.
But it would be so cool.
The thing is it's a good thing for the kids. The younger.
It's a good thing for us. You can't. We're talking about. I love Storybook Land.
But
I can't wait till they announce everything that's actually going to be in there, and I'm going to be so disappointed.
Yeah, so don't let your imagination
Charlie,
run away.
I just. I know some people that work at Disneyland. I like that. I'm gonna send that message over. Like I know people who are work 10 levels down from people that know people. Like let's get this up the chain. I like that. I like that idea.
What
We're gonna use that. Huh? The hammer.
That was mine.
Oh, sorry. Was that you? Oh, I thought Charlie said it.
No.
Oh, you
Charlie
said
agreed. Like, I want that.
it. Okay, Brock. I'm gonna send
It
this
was such
over.
a good idea. It must have been from Charlie.
Just make sure the check's addressed to me at the store.
We'll do. To Comics Conspiracy. Make the cash. So if you're a DC fan, boy, was this a week.
Are we done with the Bryce segment?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of more
Okay, I feel like this was a long time coming. Like we've been predicting like this week would come.
Ryan
for
wanted this last week.
We'll get to. Let's save
Ryan
the
desperately
big
wanted
stuff
it
for
last
last.
week.
We're going to start at the beginning of the week and kind of go through this. Many people that are terrible on the internet have said that DC's failing and that DC is falling off a cliff and going to go out of business. Rob Liefeld. That there's all sorts of problems going on at DC right now, and that it's not the new 52 anymore; it's the new 22. They canceled all their books; they're completely cutting back their line. They're gonna,
So what you're basically saying is all the bleeding cool articles.
I'm just saying. Now, last month we had a couple of announcements from DC of some new titles coming, and this month they're like, yeah, no, here's fucking we just pulled out the rest of them, right? So there's a bunch of stuff. We're not going to cover everything, but I want to cover a couple of these. We have multiple spin-offs coming out of Heroes in Crisis. One's the Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn miniseries. And the other, I think a little bit more important, is Flash Forward. It's a Wally West 6-issue miniseries as he sort of is dealing with the outcome of Heroes in Crisis. Now, I'm not as depressed by the creative team as I might have been a couple years ago. It's Scott Lobdell and Brett Booth. Now, I generally like Brett Booth. His style can be a little bit...
Brett Booth's style, I mean, his style works for Flash.
Exactly.
So, I'm not... visually, it'll look fine.
He's not my favorite artist. He draws some kind of funky, elongated people from time to time. Not Ralph and Sue, but just
Backlash.
Just long people.
I just want him to put Ralph and Sue in the background.
That would be great.
But he does draw. But I actually have kind of come around at his art a little bit.
His art has improved over the years. It's his early stuff. You could tell it was very clone of he's gotten his own. He's put his own stamp on his style.
Yeah. His early what was it, Wildstorm or Top Cow? It was one of the Image imprints.
Yeah, I mean it's all the Backlash stuff.
Yeah, it's a little not the best. But Lobdell. Not my go-to guy, obviously, but Red Hood has been really good.
Red Hood's been really good.
Some of his recent work has been pretty good. I don't know what he's going to do on his Nightwings, but that's...
Is he writing Nightwing right now?
He was. He was the guy that took over.
No, Percy took over.
Percy started it.
Oh.
And then Lobdell took over immediately after Percy took over, because Lobdell was there just fill in quick, get this out. Yeah. So I like Lobdell to a degree. So I'm cautiously optimistic that this will kind of get Wally back. I loved Heroes in Crisis. I don't have no problem with the way it ended. I don't have a problem with the overall arc of it. I am curious. I want to see them continue this story, though. And how does he get out of this predicament? How does he become a better person out of this? How does... can he fix it? Can he bring these people back to life? This is not the end of the story at the end of the day. I want to see more. So.
Mm-hmm. Who's writing the Poison Ivy Harley?
I actually don't have that up right now. If you want to grab, we could jump on and look.
Okay.
I don't have it up right now. I only have the Flash one up. I only have the Flash one up.
Let's see where his
Kevin, you reread Heroes in Crisis, start to finish.
I did.
So you liked it a little better second time around.
I think the story flows much better as a piece instead of chunked out.
Yeah.
And Clayman's art is really good, and I'll leave it there.
Yeah. One of the other big ones that got announced, we were wondering, Stefan Sejic, I believe it's pronounced Sejic. It's the bastardized American pronunciation of that name. He left Justice League Odyssey under kind of odd circumstances. Well, then we found out what he's doing. He's doing a 3-part Harley Quinn Harley origin series, fully written and painted by him, called Harleen.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, like that's a good change. Okay. This is totally fine. That this is where you're going.
Jodie Hauser's writing it.
What's
nice.
that? What's that?
The Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that's Black Label, right?
This is Black Label.
Yeah.
I think it's oversized.
It is.
Okay.
It's the same as Batman Damned.
Yeah.
But they also have another Harley Black Label, the Joker Harley.
Yeah, that's
a different book.
Is that I know it's a different book, but I mean,
I think isn't it the same?
No. That's like later.
It says Joker Harley : and it has another
something
title.
Yeah, they announced that, but I don't think that's like way down the line.
Yes, Stefan Sejic.
Yeah.
Art's going to be great on that book.
Oh, he's an amazing artist.
Story-wise?
Will you be picking it up, Brock?
Oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to be picking that shit up.
and the Archer variant covers.
Yeah. I'll still go, fuck this magazine shit, but I'll still read it.
It's always really hard for me to have somebody else do a Harley origin other than Dini. Like, he's done the origin a number of times in a number of different shows and comics and stuff at this point, and I always love them. So, it's big shoes to fill.
I think given that so far our only frame of reference for something like this is Batman Damned, I get a little nervous. Not that it won't be good, but like, is it going to come out on time? Is it going to be...
Batman Damned had its own issues.
Yeah.
I know, that's what I mean, but I'm saying because that's my only frame of reference.
Well, as long as she doesn't, as long as she keeps her pants on, it'll come out on time. But hold on. I mean, he does some pretty adult work in his other material.
Yeah, he does.
They have to understand that Harleen's going to go right to that line.
One would hope that they have to understand that.
Well, so I'm currently reading the Mad Love novel that's by Paul Dini and Pat Catacan? I don't know. But that's been really, really good too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's the novel.
That's the novel.
Yeah.
But I mean, Dini does such a great job with that character.
Yeah.
Like, I understand where Charlie's like hesitance is coming from, but the slut-loving Harley guy that I am is, I don't care. Run that line.
Hashtag me too.
Run that line.
It's okay, Brock. It's fine.
What? I'm lonely. Leave me alone.
I didn't want to comment in case this part was going to be cut out.
They'll believe it right in.
Just keep going. Just keep going.
I'm just embarrassing myself in front of my fucher kids.
I'm
Your future kids.
So when they're listening to this, when they're much older, they're like, God damn, my dad was a pervert.
that's going to be a very big book. There definitely is a heavy lean, clearly, on Batman, Harley Quinn, Batman supporting cast characters, but I mean,
well, you know why?
they're popular.
That's keeping DC afloat.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at the history of DC. When DC was kind of the floundering of DC, they had that huge thing with Dark Knight when Dark Knight Returns came out, and it went
floundering. DC never had the sales of Marvel until like that late 80s period. But
we have that dark and gritty and kind of different type of telling of these characters.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're getting with Black Label, especially with Batman's, family of characters.
Well, a lot of characters, so when they apply that logic to it, it doesn't really work for a lot of people. Right? Like look at Snyder's, Justice League and Batman, BVS, and everything. So I don't think a darker telling of a Superman book will work for too many people.
Now,
so I guess here's my 2 cents on Batman's popularity, and this is partly from going to as many cons as I have. Batman has had a lot. Batman has perpetually been on TV and in movies, and
this isn't new.
Yeah, it's all it really takes is the next, like, Aquaman status went much higher after the Aquaman movie, realistically. A few more successes for Aquaman, and all of a sudden Aquaman will sort of propel farther up also in terms of how much support and such they will give him. It's just sort of that everybody, well, at least most people have been exposed to some Batman TV show they loved or some Batman movie they loved.
Well, there's a lot of avenues you can get in.
Yeah.
There's the all ages stuff that can snag you, or Batwang could snag you, or
and you saw how much attention Wonder Woman got with the movie, and even when she was added to BVS. I kind of feel like while you can have a good amount of success in comics with like Johns' Green Lantern was hugely successful, and I love all that stuff, but was never going to hit the level of sort of notoriety that Batman has until that quality of story makes it into other forms.
But even if you look at Marvel, 60s, 70s dominated by FF and Spider-Man. Spider-Man toys to this day dominate the toy industry.
Yeah.
The X-Men ruled the 80s and 90s. The Avengers clearly in the 2000s. And so
again, with Spider-Man, how many Spider-Man cartoons have there been?
Yeah,
there's perpetually been a Spider-Man cartoon.
If you took Spider-Man away from Marvel, they would suffer a humongous blow, both financially and just like IP awareness. Yeah, because Spider-Man is everywhere, even outside the last 10 years, 5 years, or even 20 years, even pre the movie, right?
Now because of the movies, Iron Man's the big sort of. Not bigger than Spider-Man, but the consciousness for Iron Man is much higher than it used to be.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's like if only Image didn't publish Walking Dead, Image couldn't live with. It was like, well, but fuck, like, so you take the most popular thing away from a company. What's wrong? Like, it's just a dumb argument.
The thing is like taking Walking Dead away from Image doesn't derail Image. Image as a publishing house.
But absolutely would.
Well, it would diminish their profit margin on all that stuff because it's a fairly makes a lot of money for them.
But this whole argument if you took it's only popular because of the popular thing. If the popular thing wasn't there, then it wouldn't be popular. It's like, well, no shit, it wouldn't be popular. Like, like what kind of logic is that? Like,
if only this store didn't have a roof.
It's such a dumb
this would
argument.
Be completely unsuccessful.
It's so stupid. So
now. I have a question because you were saying like Black Label might not apply to all characters. What would you think to a Black Label styled Booster Gold and Blue? Hold on, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle Hangover-esque movie.
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah. I'm fine.
No, nothing.
So
it would be fun if they woke up the Hangover instead of waking up in a hotel room. They woke up in some faraway era, and they had no idea how they got there.
Yeah.
They're like in a Victorian mansion.
Exactly,
or something.
like that's the like that. But that's the kind of style of humor. But it's like the Black Label. See, there's there's audience for Black Label type stories, not in
of course,
not one direction or the other. But I think it's where people are like, oh, you can't cross a certain line or you can't do this, and it's like.
I don't think that's what it is anymore. I think when they first announced it, it felt like that's what it was. But, I mean, at this point, with what happened with Batman Damned and stuff, I think it's just a good label to put stories that are outside of continuity that sort of fit a certain mold.
Well, this was the talk from day one, was the point of Black Label was to be not ongoing series. They're like you said, out of continuity. And they're standalone.
They're adult Elseworlds.
Not even that they're adult. They will stand the test of time and sell as a single volume collection for the next 25, 30, 50, 60 years, what have you. And, Batman Volume 17 of the Tom King run is clearly just not going to have that same sort of staying power. So they're like, we have our single issues, but our best-selling graphic novels every year are Watchmen, Kingdom Come, V for Vendetta. Let's get more single story content out there.
Like Batman Hush, even though it was in the series.
But it's something they can pull out. So let's move on to the big comic topic of the last few weeks, at least for myself.
DC Comics, right?
Well, all comics. I want to.
They cast somebody for Superboy for Titans.
I saw that.
That was a while ago.
And Aqualad,
picture today dropped.
And Aqualad.
The casting for Superboy was after the first season ended.
So we finally got some news on Legion of Superheroes and JSA. Now I wanted to be.
Which one you want to go first?
I wanted to be present in the room.
Doomsday Clock. I want to do Doomsday Clock.
I wanted to be present in the room when the news finally dropped because you've been anticipating it like, hardcore for
I knew when
for 2.5 years.
I had my alarm set. I knew when it was coming. I got some heads up. So
fancy pants over here.
I was having a conversation with a friend about this, and I think I got the timeline pretty straight here from of everything that was going to happen up till now. So I'll kind of explain it to the best of my ability. I don't know any of this as fact, but it seems very obvious to me that here's what happened. Doomsday Clock was solicited, right? Jeff Johns has JSA and Legion heavily tied in to Doomsday Clock, right? I think we all kind of assumed he was going to be handling Legion and JSA after Doomsday Clock, right? I mean, I feel
there was some
involvement.
That was what we were led to believe, most likely.
Yeah. So Doomsday Clock was supposed to be over a year ago, right? It's supposed to be, what was it? It was like early summer, or it was like late summer 2017 is when the first issue came out, if my dates are correct.
The first issue came out like the last week of November 2017.
Oh, it was November? Okay, so
it came out the same week that Watchmen came out.
Okay, so anyway, it was supposed to have been over 8 months ago at this point, right?
November.
I think I feel like there was clearly plans to have JSA and Legion, probably December, January, or maybe even November, come straight out of Doomsday Clock, right? Now we have Bendis' Superman was already in motion at that point, right, around the same time. And because he took over, he's been on for a little over a year now. So clearly as Doomsday Clock was going, Superman was just his Superman run was just starting, because so she was like probably April...
he started on
because when issue 1000 was March of 2018.
Count Man of Steel,
which was that was in between, right? So March 2018 was issue 1000. So by they had to have known
like February.
Well, let me see, if March 2018 he's writing issue 1000. They would have been working on that prior. Doomsday Clock comes out in November. I mean, it's possible, even with the first or second issue in the can, they realized this is not going to happen monthly. They must have known early. Well, Bendis clearly was going to write Superman, right? But I still get the feeling Johns was going to handle JSA and Legion afterwards. It just feels like natural progression for him to go from there. I don't know that it was always the intent for Jonathan to age up, right? But I think it's a great maybe coincidence that they're like, hey, let's age up Jonathan. Oh, and by the way, I don't think that Legion book's going to happen quite the way we expected it to. So, what better place to bring the Legion back in than in Superman? All right. I don't know. Scott Snyder maybe it was always planned for him to do JSA, right? Something about it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Well, the thing is he going to be doing Justice League and Justice Society?
Well, so Snyder is the JSA is being reintroduced in JLA, and he has plans for these characters post that arc. So he's doing something with them, right? I don't know that he's writing their ongoing book coming out in 6 months or what have you, but he's doing something. Now we have a couple other things sort of that line up here. DC's ending their double shipping books, so you have some spots open in the schedule. If you're ending JLA double shipping, well, a JSA book is a perfect book to take that spot, especially if it's also written by Scott Snyder, right? Super Sons is going away. A perfect book to take the place of that would be an ongoing Legion of Superheroes comic book with John Kent on the team, which is not confirmed, I don't believe.
Are you saying written by Tomasi?
No, written by Bendis. I mean, we know Bendis is doing the ongoing Legion book. Right. But that's a nice way to keep that character's sort of publication slot going, right? Because Super Sons is almost over.
Yeah.
So I get the feeling that maybe these were plans these were set up. These were kind of set aside for Johns, but that is no longer the case. Now we know Snyder had said we had to wait for Doomsday Clock 10 to come out. And this goes back to you, Kevin, what you had said before. Why do we keep Why are we pushing and pushing and pushing Doomsday Clock 10? You don't push it every week, right?
Right.
That's not how comics work. Clearly, they had to push JLA or Doomsday Clock 10 to get to the point for the solicitation for Superman 15 and Justice League 31, I believe it is. It's the issue the JSA are appearing in. Because it is sort of just this JLA 31. These are kind of arbitrary numbers. I kind of feel they're like, well, let's just keep pushing back Doomsday Clock. It's so off the rails, it doesn't matter. Bendis, you get Legion. Johns, you get, Snyder, you get JSA. Work them into your arcs going forward, and then you take over the new books because we're pulling back your double shipping titles. Well, Bendis his double shipping stuff was already over, or here he wasn't double shipping. But to me, this is kind of how it plays out. I feel like there were other plans that Johns was more heavily involved in, but because of Doomsday Clock kind of going all crazy, we've now switched to it being Bendis and Snyder. So Scott Snyder is introducing JSA now that they've been in Doomsday Clock. Introducing JSA back into the world in Justice League 31. Mm-hmm. Legion of Superheroes is coming in, I believe, the end of issue 14, the last page of issue 14 of Superman. Issue 15 is their full reveal. It is kind of a new take on the Legion. They're not the exact same characters. They're from the 32nd century now.
So what month are these books coming out?
This is the July for September previews. So, okay. Yeah.
I will say one thing about the background before you go into what's coming.
Yeah.
I saw a Dan Didio interview from, I want to say, January 2018.
Okay.
And he was talking about the three books I keep getting asked about are Shazam, JSA, and Legion. And his quote was, with Shazam, we have a certain creative team that we want, and we're waiting for them to be available.
Yeah.
With the other two, they are tied into an event book that's going on right now, and so I can't say anything more about them.
That's Doomsday Clock, right? And I think, I have to assume Johns was going to do all three. That was probably always the plan, right? But we'd be an arc and a half into Legion at this point, right? If everything went according to plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
what is Johns doing post Doomsday Clock? Just Shazam?
The Three Jokers?
Yeah, Three Jokers is still coming out. Yeah, and that's another Black Label book. So JSA past Justice League 31, we don't know. Another thing that Snyder said is that, Doomsday Clock is doing its own thing. I don't have the exact. Give me a second. I can pull up the exact quote.
That was an interesting quote.
Let me banter for a second, and I'll grab the exact quote here. But let's talk Legion real quick while I grab this quote. The Legion of Superheroes is going to be a two-issue miniseries that Brian Michael Bendis is working with Ryan Sook, Jim Lee. And it's
that Millennium book that we were talking about the other week.
Legion Millennium.
Yeah.
Right. It's gonna also feature Kamandi, Booster Gold, OMAC, Tommy Tomorrow, Legion of Superheroes, and it's going to incorporate them all into one unified, continuous timeline.
So it's that girl on the cover. They revealed cover.
Yeah.
It's the girl on the cover kind of making a journey forward through time from the present day to the Legion.
We don't know who it is.
And so it's tying together all of these different DC futures that weren't all always on the same timeline, but now are.
Yes. Well, there's been talk, right, of Kamandi is like the way future in the DC. OMAC is before Kamandi.
And Tommy Tomorrow
was like in between. Oh, no, Tommy Tomorrow is like way in the future.
So there's the Great Disaster.
Yeah.
And then post-Great Disaster is...
Because OMAC's before that.
Yes. And then the world is rebuilt and ultimately leads to the Legion.
And isn't Tommy Tomorrow like
after the Great
past
Disaster?
That? Yeah.
So the Great Disaster that leads to into Kamandi, right?
Yeah.
That's a Great Disaster and something having to do with the world that Johns is building in Shazam with the Wildlands and all of those things, because Kamandi basically has aspects of all of those.
They have like the animal people.
They have animal people, and they have like the aspects of all that stuff in there.
So that might be long term. I don't know. But it's let's see. Jim Lee is doing the Supergirl story. Dustin Nguyen's doing the Batman Beyond story. Andrea Sorrentino's doing Kamandi. Andre Lima Arujo, I don't know him, is doing the Tommy Tomorrow. Nicola Scott's doing Booster Gold. Jim Chung is doing OMAC. Jeff Deckel is doing Off-World. I don't know what that is. And Ryan Sook is doing Legion of Superheroes. Holy shit. Holy God!
I'm just super excited for Booster Gold and Nicola Scott.
The one part that's missing from that, and I think this may be because the continuity has changed. So I used to get these DC sci-fi reprints when I was a kid, these digests, and it might have, a Space Ranger story, a Tommy Tomorrow story.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites always of that was the Atomic Knights, which I just thought was the coolest thing. But those were in Final Crisis, so I guess those guys are now in present timeline. They're not future. Because in Final Crisis, they were being used as like scouts to go into this radiated area.
Yeah. Well, that too. Also, isn't that the OMAC setup?
Yeah.
Command D.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
And they're riding the giant Dalmatians.
Yeah. But I don't know if all that's been stripped out.
Yeah, because they're not mentioned, and that's a big, because that's post-apocalypse.
Right. Here's a quote from Scott Snyder. This is on Newsarama. He says, Jeff and I talked about. I'm missing part of the sentence clearly. Doomsday Clock was running at kind of its own pace and its own continuity. What I didn't want to do was bring the JSA back before he had a chance to reintroduce them as a concept in issue 10. I think that's similar with other characters that he's going to be using in Doomsday Clock as well, like the Legion. So there's a nod to each other in that regard. I wanted him to be able to have the JSA as an idea and have that first appearance in Doomsday Clock. But in terms of continuities linking up, Doomsday Clock is a very special and inspirational book. We're all amazed, I think, at how good it is, but its effects are relatively self-contained to itself.
Yeah.
Huh? And again, clearly this is just the result of this shit was supposed to be done ages ago. The books have to move on. We have this crazy Doomsday Clock continuity with Dr. Manhattan, but Snyder's doing his own story with the multiverse in JLA. Like, we're just gonna Metaverse explains it all away. It's fine. You don't even have to worry about it.
No, the other thing I kind of read into this is, so John's had a guiding hand going into Rebirth.
Yep.
And Doomsday Clock was sort of the continuation of that guiding hand when it got launched. I get the impression, due to the new production company and that kind of stuff, he's just not in a position to be that guiding hand anymore.
No. Well,
so
he was like above Didio, right?
Yeah.
So I think he could kind of come in and go, yeah, I'll take Legion, I'll take JSA, I'll take Joker, I'll take all these characters.
Well,
and
but
now it's
even
like,
then, at the time, the amount of writing he was allowed to do seemed very limited.
Right.
So I'm excited for Johns to do more, but it seems pretty obvious to me at this point that he wanted to have a bigger role in the DCU going forward, and due to scheduling and everything else, that just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. If they shout out the JSA and Legion and gave it to a bunch of jerk-offs, then what's the point? Leave it for Johns. Let him do whatever he wants. But when you're talking about arguably two of the biggest creators in comics, with some of the best art teams in comics, okay, fine, I'll take it. I'll take Bendis and Snyder on JSA and Legion with fucking the best artist in the industry. Fine, I'll deal with it.
Did you see the Ryan Sook redesigns?
I'm like 50-50 on them, but again, it's a different. We're on the fourth boot, so
is it only the fourth boot?
Yeah,
I would have guessed higher than that if you count the 60s.
No, I mean you have.
I thought it was the sixth.
No, you have Golden. You have Silver Age, Classic Legion, right?
And that's Bronze Age also. And those had the Dave Cockrum costume redesigns.
Yep. So I mean that's the original one.
Yep.
You have the post 0 Hour reboot, which is the Mark Waid. They were all the same characters up to that point, even post Crisis and everything. They never really changed the Legion. The stories got different. All the 80s.
Okay, I'm just thinking of the different iterations. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Right. So you have the post 0 Hour where Mark Waid de-aged them, and it was like really changed them up. Brought him in, Impulse was connected to him, and all this other stuff. Then Mark Waid had the 3 boot, which was pre-New 52, where they reintroduced Supergirl with them, and now we're on Bendis' version. So
aren't you forgetting Jonas' Legion of Three Worlds?
But that's the 1, 2, and 3, right? And I mean, he basically the reboot version's in like 2 pages, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll just knock these guys out of here. Get the fuck out of here."
God, reading that without any background history of the Legion, like my mind went.
That would be watching Twin Peaks: The Return without ever having seen any more Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Now, what about the JSA? There's no details yet, right?
Nothing. But
please let them be old and on their own Earth. I just think
they're going to be young in today.
Oh, then just call it the freaking All-Star Squadron at that point. I mean, it's never worked. I know John's had a good run.
Yeah.
To me, that team has never worked as well as when they were on their own Earth as the main superhero team.
Oh, I love the legacy aspect of the JSA, where they're like, we're the old guys, but we got the kids in here with us. I love that. I think it's the best aspect of it.
Yeah, I like that. I don't like them on the same Earth contemporaneously with the JLA.
Oh, well, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Well, we had the Freedom Fighters comic, and that's not. And Shazam's kind of really on its own.
That's what I mean. You've opened the door for it.
It's possible. Yeah. It's possible.
Oh, Freedom Fighters is so good.
They tapped into a multiversity in the last issue. That was very unexpected. So cool. I'm very excited. And Bendis is going to be doing Legion Superheroes ongoing after this little 2-issue mini.
And you were skeptical, I believe, last week about Ryan Sook maintaining a monthly schedule.
Well, I don't. Is he doing the ongoing?
That's what it said.
Okay, he's not doing
the
12
press
issues.
release on DC.
Yeah,
said the ongoing is Bendis and Ryan Sook.
Okay, well.
That's why he did those redesigns.
He'll do 6 issues, and then someone else will do 6, and then he'll do 4, and then someone else will do 8. I mean,
I hope you're wrong, but
he just doesn't do interior work to that level, to that frequency anymore.
It would be like announcing Bendis and Adam Hughes, and you go like, "Well, that's going to be an amazing 4 issues."
Yeah. 4. I hope Sook's been working on this for 6 months, and maybe he's got 3 or 4 issues in the can already, and he can do a full 12, the 2 issues plus 12 more. That'd be fucking incredible. I would have no problem if he's doing the first year and then, and then he goes 6 and 6. But we'll see. While we're talking about Legion, I got a question.
Expect one and consider every additional one a bonus.
Yeah.
Can I just shout out something for 30 seconds about Doomsday Clock number 10?
Yeah, of course.
Spoiler for those who haven't read it. Mild spoiler. I just want to praise Jeff Johns, and I know we'd give that book, or some people at this table give that book a lot of shit about its schedule.
Oh, the schedule.
But there's a scene in there where it's the JSA at the table, the All-Star Comics number 3 recreation, and Johnny Thunder calls the Thunderbolt because they're all wondering why Superman isn't there, and he starts to send the Thunderbolt out to find Superman. That scene was so well written that I actually went, shit, is that actually how All-Star number 3, did that actually happen? And Johns is just quoting an old comic? Because it seemed so...
Did you go back?
I did go back, and it was not there. So that's a Jeff Johns...
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a metaverse spin.
Yeah. End of shout-out. Okay, onward.
Here's a question from Alex. He says, can you guys explain the appeal of the Legion of Superheroes for me? I looked them up after the big announcement in last week's podcast, and the characters seem uninteresting. What am I missing? If I had to read one arc to get it, what is it? He goes, I swear I'm not trying to troll anyone. I've only been reading comics for a couple of years, and I'm mostly into Marvel. Well, Alex, I would love to tell you.
That question about what should you read as a Legion, do you have an answer?
I do.
Okay.
It's the one answer I always give, or I've always given for the last number of years. It's unfortunate because it's out of print, like almost everything with the Legion of Superheroes, but it is the Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, Legion of Superman and the Legion of Superheroes.
Stuff from the action.
It's an arc in Action Comics. Mm-hmm. It reintroduces the concept of the Legion pre-New 52. It is the best of both the modern takes of the characters and the classic takes. He really does a great job of meshing these characters together. It explains their connection to Superman. It explains their connection to Superboy and the future of comics, or in the future of the DC universe.
The digital storefront is still up and running.
Yeah. We will talk about that too.
Yeah.
No, that's the Abnett and Lanning.
So
that's good.
Yes, too. I know what it is. That's why I'm holding it up for Ryan to see what he has to say.
A lot of people recommend that one. The DNA Legion run, Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning run, is fantastic if you already have a working history of the Legion of Superheroes. Much like Legion of Three Worlds. I do not recommend that book.
Do not read Legion of Three Worlds unless you're a Legion of Superheroes expert.
Yeah.
I read it. That mind fucked me.
Yeah.
hold on. At the time, I was just absorbing everything.
Yeah.
And it was around the time I think 52 was out, and so I was introduced to a lot of non-main characters, and I was just absorbing all of these characters. So for me, it worked because I was already in a good position for it.
Yeah.
It feels weird to take a Jeff Johns, George Perez book and say, don't read
that.
This. Do not read it.
Yeah. But
so the Action Comics issues?
Yeah.
So the single issues is 858 to 863.
Yep. And that's the entire arc. And it does a really good job of reintroducing, like I said, these characters. Now, Kevin, I think we'll kind of talk for a second here because he's a big Legion fan about sort of, what the appeal of these characters are. I know for me, right, I have a lot of love for a lot of teen characters, New Warriors, Teen Titans, Legion of Superheroes. It's a huge cast, so there's a lot of characters in it. I love space books. I love future stuff, right? So Adam Strange, Legion of Superheroes, those are some of my favorite. Starfire, right? These are all some of my favorite characters. Nova, right? So I'm just
Rich Rider
Nova, of course. Dick Rider. I'm of course probably programmed to like the Legion. As far as historically, they are like the first Silver Age comic book team. Technically, that might even be pre-Golden Age. Is that before Showcase 4? Is that?
No, they were in Adventure Comics.
Yeah, but did they appear before
No.
the Flash? Okay, so that's after.
Yeah.
They're one of the early. They are the earliest superhero team. They predate the Justice League by, I think.
And this is when there were three. There were basically
years.
3 of them.
Yeah. And they're not Superman. They're not Batman. They can go in some crazy adventures. They killed characters in the 70s. That didn't happen in comic books, right? They could take cool stories from today, or cool characters from today, but do like a weird twist on them in the future, like the Great Darkness saga. They had at the time. I mean, there's a lot of this is like weird historical reasons. It's not actually like the quality of the comic, but Legion had a bunch of weird firsts. Their writer was what was he, 13?
Jim Shooter.
Yeah, he was 13, 14 years old when he was writing that book. Look up the story of how Jim Shooter got a job writing the Legion of Superheroes. It's a great story. The long and the short of it is he basically conned himself into the job, and he's a 14-year-old kid writing adventure comics, writing one of the oldest comic books around. There's just
they vote all the time.
They do vote a lot of time. It really Legion is, I think, as close. Legion and New Teen Titans are as close as DC gets to the X-Men.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that one of the main issues that Legion deals with is xenophobia.
A lot,
which,
yeah.
is a huge connection. I mean, has a huge correlation with mutants versus humans
it's aliens from the original. Obviously the rules got a little lax as time went on, but the original rule of the Legion was only one person from a planet at a time, only one person with the same power. You couldn't have people with the same powers.
Yeah.
And they all would kind of get together to be this legion of superheroes that would protect the universe and kind of everyone tries to get along.
They're really the original Guardians of the Galaxy.
Sure, yeah. A lot of these concepts, the Legion is the foundation for a lot of concepts in comic books.
There's Matter Eater Lad.
I love me. Just wacky ass concepts that. They have the Legion of Substitute Heroes, which are a bunch of Z-list characters.
Those are awesome.
I love the subs, man. They're so good. It's so much of Superman's mythology is built into these characters. So it's like you take Superman and then you apply Superman to the universe.
Well, it's
right?
they took Superboy's concept and was like, we're going to have him have more adventures than you thought possible because we're going to pull him out of time.
Yeah.
Much like they did with the Adventures of Super Sons, where it's like everyone liked the Super Sons story, and he's like, we're just going to put this story that happened in between these two issues.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to say if you've only been reading comics for a couple of years and you're mostly a Marvel buff, you're probably not going to go back and read the Legion comics from the late 50s and early 60s. You're probably not going to get too much out of them. But I think if you read that Superman Legion arc by Jeff Johns, I would definitely check out the new Bendis books. He's going to have a very interesting spin on it.
I also want to shout out, they had a really good appearance in Superman's Secret Origin.
Which
the
one?
John Scary Frank.
Oh, yeah.
They were in one issue of that where they meet Superboy.
Yep.
And
didn't Morrison use them in All-Star for a little bit?
I don't think so.
All-Star Superman?
Yeah, weren't they?
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I wish they had been.
Okay.
So
And just to
I was just going to say, here's one of the things I actually really, really like about the Legion, and I don't have as much history with them as like Ryan does and stuff, but I like the fact that they kind of have a direct tie to the DC universe. Like they kind of talk about the inspiration of Superman and that kind of stuff. But there's also a lot of sort of significant events between DC as we know it now and like the Legion. Like there's no Green Lantern Corps in most iterations, and like significant stuff happens, and occasionally they touch on that. And
they're perpetually 1,000 years in the DC universe's future, so that sliding time scale gives them the ability to kind of riff on some cool DC concepts.
Yeah, and I really like sort of seeing that very different future. It's not even like a future that feels like it's directly based on the current DC universe.
Right.
It's like one of those weird cases where like the vision of the future is so different compared to what it's almost like the way people picture the future now.
Well,
as something massively different versus most of the time future in comic books is still very tied to.
Well, and it is one of the rare like non-post-apocalyptic futures.
Yeah.
I mean, there's shit going on, but it is. For the most part,
well, this is society after everything's after all the shit has happened.
After it's rebuilt,
we've rebuilt to this. Like it's the history didn't repeat itself with us, but even though it desperately tries.
Well, it's almost like history got much better, and the Legion is there to stop it from backsliding.
Yeah, that's good.
I just looked up the timeline. So the Flash Showcase 4 is 56, and the First Legion is 58.
Okay, yeah, so it's right after.
So they do predate Brave and the Bold Justice League.
Yeah, though. I knew they predated Justice League. I didn't remember if Flash was first, but yeah, Flash beat him by a couple of years.
It's some of my fondest Legion memories are from those. I think they're the Baxter comics from the 80s.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know if those are in print as trades I mean, because I'd say to a lot of people who would say, what's a good Legion starting point that's more vintage?
Yeah, it's that stuff.
I would name stuff that you can't get.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's digital single issues.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the DC app, there's a decent amount of Legion on there.
Oh, the DC universe. I totally forgot.
Yeah, there's a decent amount of Legion on there. Not a ton, but there is, and more is coming. So I
think just to answer the listener's question, and then we could go on to whatever the next topic is. I love the Legion because I always, like you, Ryan, I love anything that's like retro future.
Yeah.
Like the way they thought the future would look in the 1950s.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's like Disneyland's Tomorrowland,
yes.
right? It's that
Tomorrowland or the Jetsons,
right?
Rocket ships with fins on them, flying cars. That's the classic Legion.
That's Adam Strange too. I love it. That's the same aesthetic, and I love that stuff.
I love it too.
Yeah.
I'll always love it. It's timeless because it's like a future we're probably never going to have, which means it'll always be kind of weird and futuristic.
Yeah.
And it's not dystopian. A lot of the early stories, the Silver Age stories, you're not going to get a lot out of them if you read them now.
Well, what's so great about reading those early Silver Age Legion stories is how much a fucking dick everyone in Smallville is, and especially how much of a dick everyone in the Legion of Superheroes is.
Yeah.
Holy shit. They put Superboy through the ringer in every appearance.
Yep.
Oh, man.
But generally speaking, I mean, some runs have had the exception to this, but generally speaking, it's a bright utopian future patrolled by this, like a big, I know this is going to make it sound totally lame, gang of teenagers.
Yeah. Well, the idea was there's no need for superheroes anymore, right? So what do these kids do? They're like, we're going to make our own gang.
It's almost like the Star Trek future where we've got the United Planets and everything we've left behind all the strife of the 20th century.
It's kind of that thing that vibe that's going on now with the younger generation it has the voice and they need to be outspoken and loud and stuff like that.
That was a lot of the Mark Wade 3-boot run. The 2000s arc was a lot of that where he did approach it as we're kind of these bored teenagers in this perfect future. I mean, it is a much more interesting story. I don't think it's not quite – it never quite coalesced because pretty soon it's just like, well, now we're just kind of back to a normal Legion book. But the initial pitch, was that – what do these kids do in this perfect world? Well, they can form this team and go out and try to solve the craziest problems way out on the on the edges. And Legion it's not going to be for everyone. I mean, Bendis and with that art, if you're going to get into it, don't even read this early. Just start here. Just start.
Bendis was saying you don't have to have any.
Yeah.
This is a new Legion, and it's a jumping on point.
Yeah. I mean, if you really get into it, there's definitely older stuff to recommend. But I would just say, yeah. I mean, it's Bendis, it's Jim Lee, it's Ryan Sook, it's Andrea Sorrentino. It's like, don't even. It's like you're never gonna. There's been no Legion book like this before. Like, you're getting the best of the best. So just start with this and see if you like it. And yeah, good stuff. Legion superheroes. I'm super excited. If anything, this means we're just gonna get more Legion reprints of old stuff. So I have been harassing DC for a couple years to get that Jeff Johns, Gary Frank Legion Superheroes book collected as an oversized hardcover. It's not like those creators are doing anything major at the point that they could use to tie in, right?
No, it's too obscure.
Fingers crossed. I will lay claim to them doing the dollar books and the facsimile edition books. That's all me, baby. That's all me. I harassed them for years about this, and they're finally doing it. I'll totally lay claim to that. And if that Superman book comes out, Johns and Gary Frank can give me some royalties.
Going back to the discussion on the last episode about costume redesigns, just give me, I don't think I'm going to get it, but just give me in the Legion book the Karate Kid in the classic costume with the yellow.
Do you want to
open-chested?
What Cosmic Boys like?
Oh, no. Some of those...
his T-cut?
Yeah, if you look at the Dave Cockrum 70s Legion costumes, there are a lot of, like, disco-influenced...
What's so funny about that costume is I think it was just supposed to be... Like, it's supposed to be, like a color, but they ended up drawing it so it looked like he's completely, like...
Yeah, bare-chested.
Three-quarter bare-chested.
Like there's a T cut open in his top.
It's like Power Girl to the extreme.
Yeah.
I don't think that was supposed to be the intent.
Some of those costumes just don't hold up, but the Karate Kid will always be awesome.
So Wildfire's on that cover, so I'm halfway there. I just need Dawnstar, and we're good to go. Dawnstar is one of my favorites. So
I also like Timberwolf. Now we're getting way...
Shadowlast.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's get way in the weeds here.
I wonder if they will announce Blu-rays for the Legion show now.
Oh, fucking Jesus. Again, I've been harassing Warner Archive for years about that Legion cartoon coming on DVD.
That should be on the DC app, should it not?
It is? Isn't it?
I don't think
I
it
didn't
is.
see it on there.
It's going to be on there once they drop
I just want my physical copy from Warner Archive.
Put it out somewhere.
Yeah.
You have... It's made.
Yeah.
It's sitting there. You could make money off it.
What's great, too, is
They put out the first season on DVD, if I recall.
Couple,
but that was it.
Yeah, like 3 episodes per DVD or something. And those 2 seasons, I think that show's fantastic.
Oh, it's amazing.
They're very standalone as well. Both seasons kind of work as their own independent story, so they're very easy to just jump into. The second arc was the Imperiex, with like kind of the weird future Superboy.
Yeah,
and the first one was like the classic Superboy.
Based on any Legion story, the second season?
No, Imperiex was like he was a real current concept at that point. So
you know, a great Legion. I know we'll move on. But a great Legion
Dark
appearance.
Phoenix is next, so let's wrap up before
Well,
spoilers.
then let me talk more about the Legion. A great Legion appearance is in that Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
The Alan Moore.
Yep.
The first issue with the Kurt Swan, George Perez, just gorgeous art combo. And the Legion makes an appearance in the classic Silver Age Legion. And it's, I don't want to go into the spoilers or anything. It's really good. Really good.
I keep saying Legion, I keep going Rebels.
I love me some Rebels. I love Legion too. The modern day with Vril Dox and the formation of the United Federation.
Wasn't there one called Legion 89?
Well,
90, 91.
But
it was on the cover.
Yeah. That is the Legion post-crisis reboot. That was the series, the Keith Giffen series. And they just started numbering it yearly, but it's the same series. And then that's the series that becomes the reboot 0 hour where Mark Waid redoes everything. It's like, was it Mark Waid and Tom Payer, I think? Can't remember who the other guy on that was, but that's the one that they kind of redo.
This is stuff that would be really good in like epic type collections.
Fucking would be.
You really should have.
I have like 3 long boxes that I was going to bind, but I'm kind of done with binding, so like I'm just going to resort them and have my 3 long boxes of Legion comics.
Would you say somebody who'd never read the Legion could start with the Great Darkness Saga?
That was actually a really early Legion comic that I read.
That was like early 80s?
And I think you can, yeah, exactly.
Where Darkseid is the villain.
Yep, spoilers.
He's on the cover of the book, so sure.
It's in the name.
Yeah. I mean that is widely regarded as the best classic.
But
Legion
keep in
story.
mind, anybody who's going to jump into this, that's written like an '80s comic.
Yeah.
So it's very different.
It's Paul Levitt's to the extreme.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is, when you read it as a collection, there's a lot of panels that's recapping the issue you just read in that collection because it wasn't written to be collected.
Right.
All right.
That's how it works. We are going to do spoiler talk now for Dark Phoenix. So if you have not seen Dark Phoenix or you don't want to be spoiled about the Dark Phoenix movie, X-Men's Dark Phoenix that is in theaters, well, maybe it's still in theaters. I don't know.
They had a really good second weekend, right?
Yeah, real bad. Second biggest drop ever for a superhero movie I read. It was dropped like 72%, 73% or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's why it didn't have a very good first weekend either.
Yeah, it's not going to be around much longer.
That's okay.
We're going to talk Dark Phoenix. So, again, spoilers for the rest of this podcast. We'll do questions at the end, but if you want to fast forward, 45 minutes, half an hour, or something like that, we'll see. We'll see how long it takes.
You're going to give it 30 minutes?
Well, this is not a full episode.
That's like 1/3 the length of a discussion of a typical Marvel movie.
This is not. What are we talking about? Yes, our 4-hour. Oh, you mean the half an hour is
half an hour is a third.
A third of our normal discussion time.
Well, I figured Dark Phoenix probably, unfortunately, does not require a whole episode.
I don't think the box office is a big deal, honestly. I think that if you're Fox/Disney,
it's free.
You've got this on the shelf. Let's just get it out there and see if we can recoup it. It's just a burner.
It's free money.
Point.
Yeah.
And I wish they had taken that approach with New Mutants because honestly, I'm more curious about that.
They said it's still coming.
Okay.
Right, but that's what they said. That's what they said. So I'm actually curious.
About what? God.
What is your least
fucking hanging?
What is your least favorite X-Men movie? Like, and this includes Deadpool, this includes Logan, this includes
Origins.
Right.
Scott doesn't count all those.
Does it include the Wolverine?
Because this movie is pretty low on my list, but there's a pretty decent gulf between between this and like
Fox's Rock
the
Bottom.
F, right? I mean,
yeah.
So I'm curious, like, I want to, before we really get into it, I want to like throw a little ranking, a little grading here. Like, give me a rough number.
The worst?
Well, just where does Dark Phoenix land on your list before we discuss it? I'm curious.
I didn't see Apocalypse.
Okay,
so I can't comment on that. I saw The Last Stand theatrically, and I
forgot it.
I don't think I could pass a true/false quiz. I don't think I could pass a multiple choice quiz or any kind of quiz. So I can't really comment on that. Origins Wolverine would probably be the bottom of the ones that I remember.
Yeah. Is this right above that?
No, this is higher than that.
Okay. No, but I mean, your X-Men list in order, where does this rank? Where are you putting this?
So we're counting Deadpool and all of that?
Deadpool and Logan and everything.
Bottom third, but not the bottom.
Yeah, okay.
Top of the bottom.
So, for me, okay. So, Last Stand and X-Men Origins... Like, I can't rewatch those movies. Like, I think I own both of them, and I can't bring myself to actually put those discs. Mind you, if it makes you feel better, I own Last Stand because I bought a trilogy box set on Blu-ray.
I bought the 3-pack too. So yeah.
And I think I got X-Men Origins because it was really, really, really cheap on a Black Friday.
I can rewatch the elevator scene,
but
I bought Fantastic Four 1 and 2 on a 2-disc combo pack, so...
You're voting with your money. All of you are voting with your money. You shouldn't buy it and then complain.
I bought mine on DVD for
back to my point is...
upgraded.
I've watched X-Men 1 and X-Men 2 plenty of times, yet I can never bring myself to go on to 3 or X-Men Origins.
X-Men 3 you've seen X-Men 3. I have yet to ever see Batman and Robin, and I refuse. Like, I won't even go and buy the 4-pack. I don't even, like...
Okay, Batman and Robin is horrible.
Yeah.
But I can name you... It would take me 2 hands to name you comic book movies I would less like to watch again than Batman and Robin.
So, the reality is, I kind of consider Last Stand and X-Men Origins, like, in their own category of so bad I won't even rewatch them.
Whoa, and that's the bottom of the bottom.
We have a new rating system. So bad, Charlie won't rewatch it.
So Dark Phoenix, where are they going to go on your list?
Higher than Apocalypse.
That's not much. Doesn't take much.
I'm trying. So, Deadpool 2, Logan, the Wolverine, X-Men 1, X-Men 2 are all on the. I will happily rewatch any of those.
Yep.
I'm happy with all those movies.
First Class and Days of Future Past.
First Class and Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past is also on the list of ones I will happily rewatch. First Class, I always have issues with Sebastian Shaw in that movie.
Yeah.
I do, and I have trouble getting past that.
Oh, I'll trade you Sebastian Shaw for fucking January Jones every day of the week. You kidding me?
But she looked perfect.
She's awful, though.
Say I'm wrong about that comment.
No, yeah, she looked perfect. Sure.
All right.
So when I get sort of into this one, this was an interesting one because I actually liked and appreciated some of the stuff they did, and I understood some of the choices they made, but making the lead alien basically look like the White Queen, so in all the trailers you could easily assume that's
on the list, Charlie. Come on. Just I don't want to get into the full discussion.
No, but
we're gonna have a 30-minute discussion about our ranking
because I think me and you are probably in the same
spot.
I think me and you are going to be in the same spot mostly.
Low, middle, high, bottom. Like that's all. Like
it's towards the bottom.
It's the highest of the worst. It's the best of the worst. It's the worst of the best.
That's a good way to put it.
Yes.
Yeah.
To me,
Jesus.
Oh, you didn't watch it yet, Bob.
I didn't fucking watch it. I already told you where it places.
To me,
I don't care. Like, I didn't go watch Apocalypse in the theater. I watched it years later, and I was like,
well,
yeah.
I didn't watch Apocalypse in the theater, nor would I have watched this one except for this show. I did my homework.
I didn't know.
And I followed it, Ryan. I followed a chaser of Godzilla. And so when I walked out of the theater, I had to make some notes because I was so bombarded by visuals.
Godzilla's fucking incredible.
That I had to get down what happened in which movie so I could come here and talk about it.
To me, First Class...
Dazzler's only in one of them.
To me, X3... And X-Men Origins are bad on levels that I can't even comprehend, right? Apocalypse is stupid, right? It's stupid.
Yeah.
But it has a really cool Wolverine origin segment in it. Like
I liked the opening. I like establishing Apocalypse from that far in the past.
The one peg that takes down the entire...
I don't even care about that shit. That shit happens in movies all the time. But
one peg takes down the entire pyramids.
But establishing Apocalypse in the pyramids in ancient times, I love that scene.
Yeah.
But what kills me about movies like Apocalypse, honestly, are why didn't they include more of the stuff that I love about Apocalypse and like the way that gets built up? And realistically, I kind of feel like if they had done Apocalypse right, it wouldn't have been a single movie.
Yeah. Well, this I put Apocalypse third to bottom because it's just stupid. I'll probably put this right next, tied with Days of Future Past for next. I don't really care for Days of Future Past. I think the follow-up from First Class, to me, it was not as good. I like First Class quite a bit. It was a cool reintroduction. Now, the bigger problems, especially once you get into Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, is they have just jettisoned any attempt to have these movies make any sort of logical sense to each other. To me, the biggest problem...
was the 50s movie.
The biggest problem with this movie was it was just a random X-Men adventure that was kind of forgettable. It had nothing to do with Dark Phoenix. It had nothing to do with anything involving the original source material. It's just a random adventure of the X-Men, and Dark Phoenix is such a bigger story. That's not your. You could do an X-Men story with the Brood that involves space and they come down to Earth, and it's a Brood movie. All right, we just move on. Like Dark Phoenix is something different. Dark Phoenix is something else. That requires the multi-year television series to build to. That's a 3-part trilogy movie. It is not we just kind of shout out the Dark Phoenix. They're in space for like 2 minutes in this movie. That's not a Dark Phoenix movie if you're not even in space until the opening credits. Or if you're only in space until the opening credits, right?
Okay. I've got my notes out here.
So I don't hate this movie. It's generic, forgettable. It's mediocre. It's fine. It was a fun X-Men adventure with some okay scenes. For a final movie, whatever. Just this stuff. It's out of our misery now. But I do want to counter. It is nowhere near as bad as Apocalypse, as X-Men 3 or X-Men Origins. It is far from the worst X-Men movie. It's not great, but I think it's totally watchable. If you've got Movie Pass and you don't have any movie that you want to watch this month, if you have AMC Movie Pass or whatever, and it's still playing, I think it's worth a watch. It's worth watching when it's on TV, or to grab it on Netflix, or grab it on Disney streaming service.
Black Friday deal.
It's not going to be your favorite, but to me, before Kevin, you got some notes. We got a lot of talking points.
I have a question for you and Charlie.
But I just want to say, I will, as much as I can defend a C- movie, I'm going to defend this, right?
So having been away from the franchise since Days of Future Past, you guys need to fill me in, or Brock, as also you saw Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. In the start of this movie, there's a space shuttle problem, and the president calls the X-Men to go. Are the X-Men now like the go?
No.
What?
None of this. Like I said.
So that's brand new.
None of this.
Because I was like, wow, I feel like I've missed a lot since Days of Future Past.
So what president?
The U.S. president.
What president does it feel
like? They even
It's just a movie president.
Yeah, it's 1992.
So it's 90s.
1992,
yeah.
Which... these characters not aged in 20 years.
Yes. Yeah, that's
right.
That's the other issue with like the First Class to Days of Future Past to Apocalypse to this movie is that they kind of were trying to do.
Yeah, the timeline makes no sense.
They were doing the 60s.
Well, Cyclops was in the last movie, right? Wasn't Cyclops in Apocalypse?
Yes. Yeah,
and he's like and it's like 12 years later or whatever, or 10 years later, and he's like, he somehow looks younger. Like I don't know how that works.
I think with this, what struck me with this movie is...
Do people even know that mutants exist in X-Men 1? Like, when the first movie came out?
Yes.
Like, the public was conscious...
Yeah, because there was that senator who was railing against the mutants.
Right.
And Magneto's plan was to turn everyone into a mutant with that machine.
Yeah.
Oh, the one that turned...
But nobody knew about the X-Men at that point. Like, the X-Men were not a known quantity.
Okay, so the thing is that we've just kind of skipped ahead.
Yeah.
So the X-Men are like the superhero team of this
world.
There's just, I'm going to jettison...
It was never called the Jean Grey School for Gifted Mutants.
I'm going to jettison half these notes.
No.
No. But I just...
Okay, so let me just preface this just to address that specifically.
Yes.
So there was an interview right before this movie came out, which talked about getting both McAvoy and Fassbender... back for this movie. And Genosha was Fassbender's, like, I want Genosha. I've always wanted to do the Genosha story.
Yeah.
And McAvoy's was, I really want to do a story about Xavier's ego.
Okay. Well, they didn't do either of those.
Well, I mean, technically those two things are in this movie.
Yeah, and I think that's why you get into the president calling and that kind of stuff. I think that's specifically because McAvoy wanted to explore the ego of that character more.
So part of this is going to be on me. I'll acknowledge this just going in. But there's all sorts of things in this that just took me out of the movie. First of all, I'm wondering about that president phone call. I'm going like, okay, well, that's probably just I must have missed something in Apocalypse, and that's what happens now.
I don't think so. No.
But then, so the X-Men fly into space. We're in spoilers, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is the first 10 minutes of the movie. The space shuttle is stranded up there because of solar flares. The X-Men fly up there to rescue the space shuttle astronauts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool scene. I like that.
No, there's nothing wrong with the scene.
Nightcrawler and...
while they're in space, we get scenes on Earth of various people crowded around television sets.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what are they watching? Because there's not a camera up there filming the rescue. And so the news feed would be space shuttle engine trouble, X-Men go up to space to rescue it. Like, the world is not going to stop for that news story.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're trying to capture the whole, like,
Challenger.
Exactly. The whole idea of everybody on Earth is invested in these astronauts.
So they come back, and the mission seems to take, I don't know, an hour? Because they just kind of rocket up into space.
Yeah.
We see the whole rescue. It's not like they cut forward in time, and they come home. They're at a military base with these astronauts, and there's a huge crowd of people with, homemade X-Men signs, and I'm thinking, who are they? How did they get on this base? Did they have those signs already, or did they make them quickly for this rally?
George Soros paid them all to be there.
It's like they're at a pro wrestling event. It says, X-Men Forever on somebody's sign, or We Love Gene. And I'm just thinking, what did I feel like I've missed 10 movies.
No, it's the 90s. Everyone loved the X-Men in the 90s, right? 90s X-Men cartoon.
So I'm going to put
loves them.
I'm just going to put part of that on myself.
I would get on board if they established the X-Men cartoon as something in the X-Men universe.
I was thinking you guys were going to come here tonight and you guys were going to tell me, in Apocalypse, X, Y, and Z happen, and I go, now it makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. If that had been playing on a TV.
Yeah, right?
Charlie, we got to get this stuff going.
So what have we learned so far? We need these companies to contract out and talk to us about these ideas before they ever put anything down.
But the two other things I'll say quickly. There's a Dazzler cameo that I just loved.
Yeah,
it's 20 seconds, maybe?
Yeah.
She's in the OG Dazzler costume, singing and making a light show with her fingers, and it was awesome.
They're just whatever. We just got to shit something out.
Yeah.
Just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
No, that goes back to Apocalypse, because in Apocalypse they had the Dazzler record. Right?
Okay.
Right, so in Apocalypse they did have the record that was the Dazzler, had the Dazzler's photo on it. So that is connected too.
Now I have a question for Ryan and Charlie, and this is legitimate. You guys fill me in. What really sets the movie going is, she's possessed by the Phoenix Force in space.
Right.
Okay, fine. She learns that her father's alive. Okay, so we're building up a series of traumatic / emotional events to this character.
Yeah.
She goes to her dad's house. They have an argument, confrontation. The X-Men jet lands outside the dad's house because they figured out where Jean is.
Yeah.
Okay? So far I'm right. The X-Men get out of the plane. Jean comes out the front door. 3 police cars come screaming up with sirens going, and I'm sitting in the theater going, wait, who called the cops? Who called the cops in a way that would send a squadron of cars with the sirens going? Because that's what sets her off, is the sirens. She freaks out at the sound and wrecks the police cars, which then brings the military after her later. But I'm sitting in the theater literally completely disengaged and going, why are the police there? Did I miss something?
You're way overthinking this.
You are way overthinking.
But the police showing up.
Again, it's a bad movie.
So I could have the same I'm not saying that people wouldn't call the cops when all this stuff is going on.
But nothing went on. The X-Men, the beloved X-Men's jet landed on the street. You would think kids would come rushing out.
According to your notes, right, you would expect that they came to this base and there's tons of people with signs. Wouldn't be people rushing out of their house to
That's
take
what I would
selfies
think.
With the X-Men?
Jean didn't blow up the house. She's in the house arguing with her dad, and then she comes outside and the police come rushing up.
There's been a few points in time where things seem to be reacting to Jean at that point, and from a general perspective of the X-Men mysteriously showing up somewhere, I would kind of assume that would mean there would be danger in that area.
Okay.
I don't get the impression the X-Men go around making random public appearances on stage.
What if they just found a new mutant with Cerebro and they're just going to investigate?
That being said, there's plenty of times stuff went wrong and police just suddenly appear in the other X-Men movies.
Well,
and
Gina's
stuff.
had a bad history with police and military people.
I'm not giving you an answer because there is no answer. It's
I just thought I was legitimately asking you guys because I thought, did I just zone out and miss a line of dialogue where somebody's like, I think she's killing that guy.
In a few minutes that you missed.
No, but
Toby style. I just was asleep for a minute and suddenly they're on the moon.
No, okay, so I like the space scene just because that grounds sort of the Phoenix entity. It bothers me a little bit that they more than hinted about the Phoenix power in Apocalypse, so it's kind of weird that they
don't explain anything.
I know.
They don't really get into what it is or
but
why.
If you separate from that I'm glad they kind of had the entity. I'm kind of glad the way they kind of fused the entity into Jean, I liked. What I didn't like is they never really explore more about the entity beyond just, this is an entity out there that's been responsible for the destruction of various planets and all sorts of power rebirth.
That's what I mean. If you're a non-comic fan and you go and watch this movie, what the hell do you take away from it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, what happened?
Was the Phoenix, did it look like a cloud?
Who are these people? And, like, you're never even this Star Trek Nemesis, okay? The final Star Trek Next Generation movie. I've brought this up on the podcast before, but I'll bring it up again.
It's been a long time since
early date between me and Leanne.
Wait, didn't...
Go see Star Trek Nemesis.
No, I think I was there with you too, wasn't I?
I don't think so.
You took Brock with you on a date with Leanne?
I had a date with Leanne.
I want to hear this. Never mind Nemesis. I want to hear this.
Where did you see it?
I have no idea. Probably Mercado at the time.
Was it Mercado?
I don't know. Why the hell would you have been there?
How romantic, Ryan.
So, Star Trek Nemesis, final Star Trek movie. I took Leanne to go see that on an early date. She knew nothing about Star Trek. She actually really likes Star Trek now, but at the time, knew nothing about it, right? I was like, well, it's a nerd thing I want to go see. You know, do you want to go see? Yeah, okay, fine. She walks out of the movie theater. She goes, I have a lot of questions, but the very first question is, what is the Federation? Right? I'll never forget this, right? If you don't know Star Trek and you go into Nemesis, you're like, what is going on in this movie? Like, who are any of these people? And I mean, look, it's not that every movie has to recap everything, but if you're just even if you're a movie X-Men fan and you've only ever watched the movies, I think you would go into this movie and be like, huh? Like, what is happening here? Like you said, between Apocalypse to now, it's like stuff has happened that we aren't told about, right? Like, I know who these aliens are. I know what Phoenix is, but you're never really explained any of this stuff within the context of the movie. So,
I listened to an interview with Simon Kinberg, the writer-director, and he said that his idea when they were putting it together was those aliens were going to be the Skrulls.
Right.
But that the Skrulls were off limits.
Yep.
So are those from the comics, the ones that they went with?
So, by name, yes. It's the planet that Jean Grey blows up.
What's the alien race?
Yeah, whatever that thing is.
You mean in the Dark Phoenix saga?
Yeah.
Those people that look like broccoli?
Yep. It's the same name. It's not the same characters.
Right.
They're just random made up
shapeshifters
because they can't use the Skrulls, but the name is the same as
I was just thinking, Jessica Chastain is just completely wasted. Like, why would you even call? You could get any actress at the minimum SAG rate to play that role.
Yeah, she's just a random.
She's just sleepwalking through it, and that's not against her. I'm just mean that's how it's written, like an emotionless dead character.
Yeah.
You can plug anyone in that.
She's like it's like a Terminator, like the T-1000.
Yeah,
just and not even that good because Robert Patrick's awesome.
Realistically, those aliens were one of my least favorite parts of that movie.
Again, it's like who, what, why, right? Like,
well, even beyond that, as I said, it bothers me. They already. There's no way that I believe that they weren't going like, oh, we're going to make her kind of look like the White Queen because the Hellfire Club and the White Queen.
I saw like one trailer for this, and I'm like, White Queen?
Yeah.
Right? I had no idea she was a shape-shifting not Skrull, right? Like,
of course,
what the
because
fuck?
how would you not think
so that's the White Queen.
Like
yeah.
But what is the alien plan? To get the Phoenix Force, but then she's like, and I'm going to blow up your world. Why?
Well, right, exactly.
I got the impression they were trying to get the Phoenix Force to basically either terraform the world or recreate their, like, it's not well explained, but the idea is...
It's not explained at all.
Well, no, they talked about being able to control that power to recreate their world. Like, they did touch on the two aspects of the Phoenix destruction and rebirth.
Look, you can shit on the Green Lantern movie all you want, but at least we had that opening sequence where we are given some context for what Parallax is and what he's doing, and like what the fuck the deal was. Like, had they had a scene, seriously, right? They were missing the scene where the Phoenix Force is flying out there in space, comes across this planet, and fucking explodes it, and this little craft is like the last survivors, and it's those people, right? If that was the opening of the movie, I'd at least have some context what's going on.
Yeah, like what you said, imagine that scene where there's this nice, the Phoenix Force just comes in, envelops the world, right? And blows it up, and like you said, you're watching it.
I know.
And it turns, and you're going into the ship. Like they're watching from their visor.
To answer your question, Brock, yes, it does look like a cloud.
It does?
It's only called Phoenix because the kids at the school call Jean Grey Phoenix.
Yeah, but it does come, it has the whole Phoenix look at the end, right? Yeah. But that is the Phoenix Force. I mean, that's not it's a fairly accurate representation of the Phoenix Force, but it has
show you a Galactus cloud.
But it's just what, like, why? What is this? Right?
So one of the things I've always taken from the Dark Phoenix Saga, and even like the Phoenix Saga, because that's part of what was missing from this, is you don't give the Phoenix Saga part of the story to breathe either.
Well, there is no Phoenix part of the story.
I know.
You go straight to Dark Phoenix.
I know.
You missed the whole, like, first 3/4 of the story, right?
Yes.
You jump straight to the end.
This is like going from issue 90.
There's a lot of exploration of what the entity inside Jean wants, which leads into the Dark Phoenix Saga because of sort of that draw towards emotions and taking everything to the extreme. Because they never really give a chance to explore that. The closest I got was in that scene where like Jean walks into the bedroom and sees like the universe around her, and like that's the closest we got to somebody trying to manipulate Jean and the Phoenix in the way that it happens in the comic books. And that for me is the part that still dies about this movie. Like, I liked most of the beats about it. I liked sort of the power level and the struggle, but without the exploration of the entity inside Jean, it doesn't make any sense.
I have another complaint. Could you pick any more scrub sidekicks for Magneto than whoever any of those characters were? I never looked them up. I have no idea who those characters are supposed to be.
So there's a guy whose hair whips around.
I have some vague recollection of seeing him on the cover of those awful Joe Mad X-Men comics. I think
there's a girl or woman who can also control minds, like
Charles. I have no idea.
But she has a knife.
Yeah, I have no idea who those characters are supposed to be. I don't have a single clue.
I thought I missed it.
I still, because I read the interview, I knew that was Genosha. If I hadn't read the interview, I would not have.
It's not. I mean, it's not Genosha. It's just. It's just like a farm he's on.
Well, it's an island.
It's supposed to be. They show the island, and it's supposed to be Genosha, but they never establish.
His Magneto Genosha. Chilling in some farm.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
Well, it's
there?
like a commune.
But, like, how did we get to this point?
Yeah. Again, I thought this was all from Apocalypse.
Nope.
No.
Oh, wait. Genosha has never been in the movies before this?
No.
Oh, shit. Well, then it's even worse.
Yeah.
Because they don't reference why he's there. They don't reference how Jean knows he's there, or the military knows Oh. Okay, you guys. My rating is falling now. See, I thought this was all just stuff that was on me because I had missed a movie.
Nope.
No.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously, I kind of consider it, as I said, when I said if I had to predict the way contract negotiations went, James McAvoy said, "These are my demands." Fassbender said, "This is what I want in this movie." Jennifer Lawrence said, "You have to kill me in the first quarter of the movie."
Okay, so the psychic is Selene.
Yes, the psychic is Selene.
She's
the hair whipping is Arika,
and I think that's the guy from the shitty Joe Mad stuff. Selene is she's actually a
Morlock.
Character. I think so.
Yeah.
Is she the one? Is she the Morlock one? She's this. The Dabari. She's like she's kind of like the Black Queen. You've seen her. You've seen her.
Yeah.
Very like Black Queen. Yeah. She's been in the comics. Yeah. The other guy, I'm pretty sure he's from the Joe Mad run.
Yeah. Well, you're right. If that's Magneto's.
Yeah, just two randos. Yeah, super.
Like, I'd rather even have the Toad.
Oh, it's like Toad, Blob, Mystique. Yeah, all the classics.
I also read something
thank God they got rid of Mystique, too. She must have been like, please just put me out of my misery. Fucking kill me in the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
So
they did, right?
Yeah. Good. So I could just be out of here.
Yeah.
And then totally telegraph it in all the trailers.
Here we go. Yeah. So you have Beast, Storm, Nightcrawler, Red Lotus.
Oh, Red Lotuses.
I don't know who Red Lotus is.
What are you looking up?
This picture that they show here.
No, I don't think so.
So it's
like Beast is kind of working with Magneto a little bit because he's like.
So
We're the last of the original X-Men.
So to go back to your Nemesis comparison for a moment.
Yeah.
One of the issues I always had with Nemesis, and this is like a big difference between the original series and the next gen stuff to me, is... Oh, and actually X-Men 3 also had this problem. When you get to a point where actors are using contract negotiations to dictate what they want to happen in a movie, the movie always suffers.
Yeah.
That's basically my feeling for it. And I did read an interview where Kinberg talked about how he was originally planning for like 2 movies, and then it got even more condensed into one. But the fact that I know Genosha came from one demand, and then like the ego and building up sort of the superhero status came from another demand. When the movie was Dark Phoenix, like I don't know,
And Genosha seems like such a weird demand because it's in. Are they there 10 minutes of the movie?
Yeah, but it's.
I mean, it literally could have been.
From what I understand,
the island is totally pointless to the scene.
Fassbender is a huge comic fan too, and he loves Genosha from the comics.
But like, what is there to love about Genosha? I mean, it's Magneto's story on Genosha is not just, and he's on Genosha for a minute and then isn't.
Again,
like,
I kind of feel like they said, sure, we'll have Genosha in it, and then they just gave him a
Genosha's like a huge like mutant apocalypse, mutant
I know.
like entire city that Magneto
runs. If it had been 2 movies, I would love the first movie to have been the whole. Like, my favorite thing about Genosha is it's a mutant haven, and then you find out it isn't.
Right.
And they could have done that in the first movie with the Good Phoenix.
Yeah.
They could easily have done a sort of Genosha as the X-Men, and the Good Phoenix go there.
Yeah.
Even to save Magneto, that would have worked fine.
Yeah, because what you're describing, Asteroid M would have been a lot better in this movie.
Well, again, they're in space for 3 minutes, so like... They're not going to do anything.
But no, as I said, it's definitely weird the way some of this stuff came about, because there definitely was a certain amount of let's give these people what they want, and it doesn't necessarily help the story.
No, it's... I just don't know.
As you said, it's the... We're going to make another movie. It doesn't really matter what happens in the movie or how much money it makes or doesn't make.
Yeah, the Disney stuff was already in the... No. The Disney stuff was already in talks but when they were doing this. So I'm sure they all had that fucking sword of Damocles hanging over their head. There's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm surprised they actually did a bunch of reshoots on it and stuff too. I think they would have just looked at it and went, well, whatever. Like, we're done.
Let's venom this and walk the fuck away.
They had to wait a year to do the reshoots to get the cast back together. Because the original ending, he was saying, was Charles, Jean, Magneto, and the alien.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
As the final conflict. And then
there was no train.
No. Then they had to wait to get all of the team back together at the same time for the train.
I know I'd read this. The ending was supposed to be kind of basically the exact same ending as Captain Marvel. And if you look at the opening, it's the exact same opening as Shazam, right? So it's this weird...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's the exact same car
Anytime I see child in backseat of car, from now on in a movie, I assume the parents are going... Somebody's going to die.
Yeah, of course.
But even without the psychic thing, because the psychic power is what causes the accident.
Right.
Even before that, when the radio is... Jean's changing the radio station with her mind from the back seat. God. The mother is literally... turned all the way around talking to the daughter while driving the car. I'm like, your shitty driving is going to kill the family even without any powers. I mean, she's looking directly backwards.
They're not even using the rear view mirror?
No,
oh,
she's turned her like this. Jean, what? Oh, I'm off mic now. But anyway, you get the idea.
So, Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, I'd agree with your grade. I'm not sorry I saw it. I'm not glad I saw it.
Yeah.
6 months from now, I don't know that I could even tell you anything about it.
I read a great thread on Twitter that said, look, one of the biggest problems with the X-Men is movies just don't work for the X-Men. Even the best X-Men movies, it feels off because to me, the X-Men need a long TV show.
Yeah.
You need those 10 episodes of heavy drama, of characterization. It's way more... The X-Men have always been way more the personality, the internal conflicts than the big fight scene, right? There's always going back to the
Man, it's like the CW should
John
just
says
make
X-Men.
Since when they get rid of DC Legends, they should just do an X-Men.
You don't I think personally, you do a couple seasons and then you have a big blowout movie. That's your Age of Apocalypse. That's your Dark Phoenix saga. I mean, they have the ability to do this with the Disney streaming service. They could do 10 episodes and then like a 2-hour movie special. I think that is way better suited for the X-Men. Not every character is like this. I think, again, Avengers works because the characters have their own stories within their own movies.
The Avengers come together. The X-Men is already an established team. They go out.
People have said, do you want a Legion of Superheroes movie? And I said, no, I want a Legion of Superheroes TV show because you have such a massive cast. Yeah. It's not the best show I've ever seen, but I actually kind of like The Gifted. It feels like an X-Men TV show should, right?
So,
and you have the budget. We'll talk about Krypton maybe in a second. Krypton has incredible effects for what's probably a really cheap show, right?
Yeah. So this is my mentality when it comes to sort of the X-Men movies, and this especially applies to First Class and Days of Future Past and Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. They always wanted to set up certain things and tell a longer form story in some cases. But by the time they were sitting down to write the next movie, the person would kind of ignore everything that came before.
Yeah. Well, that definitely... Days of Future Past, we rewrote the continuity, but what happened? They didn't really explain. They didn't do a good job of saying what the changes were. And then these movies make Apocalypse and this have no connection to what they did in Days of Future Past. So will they be some weird parallel dimension now? I don't know. They have an Infinity
Stone. As I said, I really feel like they, between production changing and writers changing and that kind of stuff, nobody sort of sat down. They don't have a Kevin Feige, basically. They don't have somebody overseeing, this is the story you're going to tell through these movies. And I think it's perfectly possible to do a smaller scale sort of X-Men movie. You look at X-Men 1. X-Men 1 is a perfectly fine movie, and even X-Men 2. You can do very good movies that kind of build upon each other, but you need a long vision. You can't try and go directly to Infinity War without sort of the build-up. You can't go directly to the Dark Phoenix saga without laying out we're going to hit these beats, this beat, and that's how we get there.
Well, the Phoenix saga in comics was a year long.
Yeah.
And this is issue, I think she gets the Phoenix powers in 101.
Yeah.
And so this is reading 101 and then somebody handing you 137 with none of the issues in between. And you just go
what happened? Yeah, there's so much buildup with the Hellfire Club
at the end, right?
With the Hellfire Club, Jean's kind of corruption or power change as time goes on. Again, and that's why I think just a TV show was. Imagine a season, 10 episode, 13 episode, direct to Disney Plus, X-Men, Phoenix/Dark Phoenix saga. The first 7-8 episodes, she's got the power, starts to go bad. The back half is them taking care of her, right? I mean 13, 14 hour long.
Just rest Phoenix. You could even do the all new, all different X-Men. Just open up the show with the death of the original team. Yeah, or the original team disappears. You don't need to know anything about them. Xavier is recruiting all these mutants from different places. You get to meet them all right there in the show and see the team form.
And then they bring back the originals at the end of the first season. And then season 2 is your Phoenix. I mean, what I mean is it just lends itself so much better to. I mean, again, and a lot of comic books, Spider-Man, I think does a pretty good job of. He's one character, so I think the movies do a good job of giving you enough of his story, of his life, and there's enough to go on. But if you were to just jump straight into the event, and this is maybe the problem in Justice League, right? We didn't have the background.
Well, they treated Justice League
for this version of Cyborg, for this version of Wonder Woman.
This team's always together. I'm like, no, the Justice League comes together just like the Avengers come together. They have their own things that they're doing,
just didn't
but
get
they
there fast.
come together.
Yeah, it was too fast. Well,
Didn't you say there's a ton of listener questions?
We're going to get to a couple of them, yeah. Any last thoughts on Dark Phoenix?
What more is there to say?
Yeah.
Charlie and I have a quick thing on Good Omens.
Oh, yeah.
X-Men the Animated Series was great and had a great Phoenix saga.
It's like a good chunk of a season, right?
It was like only 5 episodes.
It was like between X-Men and between Phoenix and Dark Phoenix, and they do both kind of stories. Yeah. If you want to talk about Good Omens real quick.
I finished it last week.
Yeah, it's great. It's David Tennant is amazing as Crowley. I know but they rename him a couple of times through there because he gets bored with his name and adjusts it. No, it's good. It's worth watching.
I read the book. God, I don't know how long ago now. Really enjoyed the book when I read it. Watching this, just it's kind of that quirky humor, fun, kind of look at religion and all that, like kind of not in the same vein as like Dogma, but definitely.
God, I hope not.
It brings up topics like Dogma did, but not the same humor style. So, but really great cast. Frances McDermott as the voice of God was just spot on. So, highly recommend. It's only 6 episodes. So
yeah. I didn't realize it was so short.
Yeah, it's just quick. Definitely go watch it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get to it. I just finished up Umbrella Academy. Yeah, which I was a little on, but the last few episodes I thought got really good.
Which now you're finally going to finish Doom Patrol.
Doom Patrol's next. Yep.
But you did watch the first episode of Krypton.
Yeah, we got a question about that, so I'll talk about Krypton in a second.
Okay.
Question from Ulysses. He says Marvel, I think he means DC. Why did DC cancel their DC Modern Classics? We were supposed to get new graphic novels for Dark Knight Returns, Long Halloween, but they canceled it. All right. So DC canceled a bunch of random trade paperbacks. They've also started to resolicit a bunch of omnibuses and some pretty surprising stuff in the recent previews.
Yeah.
And I don't believe any of this is like weird secret knowledge. To the best of my ability, here's what I've been able to find out by talking to DC. When they had their big restructuring, a lot of stuff got kind of thrown around. They have some shakeups in the graphic novel department. A bunch of stuff got kind of put on hiatus, canceled for now. Some stuff got kind of they're going to move to some different formats. They had solicited new versions of a bunch of classic trade paperbacks. It sounds like what's happening is they have stock on these other volumes and other versions of the book. So they're not going to print a new version of like Long Halloween when they have in print copies of Long Halloween, right? There's like Final Crisis just had like a new version, even though they had the old Final Crisis book available still. It's like, why would you have multiple copies of the same?
Makes no sense.
Right, exactly.
Well, so, it's like Hush is coming out. They're coming out with another trade paperback of Dress with Hush?
No, they're not. They canceled that.
Oh, they canceled
that. As far as I know, they canceled. So a lot of this stuff was new editions of stuff that was still available. I believe the plan is down the road when those quantities get super low and they're going to sell out of, let's say, Watchmen, the new version will come out. Mm-hmm. When they're finally out of their copies of Hush, a new version will come out.
We'll see, and this is something I think that's a good plan to have, especially with those titles that are constant sellers.
Yeah,
like Hush is, Long Halloween is, Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen. You have all of these titles that are evergreen, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's exactly what they are.
And so it's like having it. The trade department go, okay, our next dress is going to look. How are we going to do this? What are we going to do? Who's going to do the introduction this time? Or like, I get having that kind of as a. This is what we're doing in case once this happens.
To me, this just flat out sounds like what you would do in business. You wouldn't go back to print on something that's readily available.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It just would. That would be like announcing the 5th print for a book that has not sold out the first print. Like
what Marvel always does. Yes, I think the plan here is they maybe jumped the gun a little bit, and whatever was going on with the book distributor, they were like, well, why don't we just ship what we have, and then we will roll these out as time goes on. Question from Cole. What are your top 3 comic book movies besides Marvel and DC?
We did a whole episode on this.
We did. A long time ago. We don't ever remind anyone?
I don't even remember.
It wasn't that long ago. Was it Bryce's last episode?
No, it was
it was
when
supposed to be.
When he came back.
When he came back. Yeah. So he says his favorite are TMNT, the 1991, The Incredibles, and The Crow.
Oh, two of Toby's top three on that list.
And of course, The Crow was on mine, as well as Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
I remember what my number. Did I have a number 3? I don't remember.
Well, you had a Marvel or DC though. I think we're eliminating those though.
Yeah. No Marvel, no DC.
But those were okay on our original show.
Oh,
That's what I mean.
original.
So I had the Rocketeer.
Yeah, you're the Rocketeer.
The Chris Reeve Superman, which I guess counts as DC.
Yeah.
Yes, a Superman movie.
Well, but I mean, I didn't know if the question meant the current iterations.
No Marvel and DC movies.
Oh, of any era.
Yeah.
Okay, then the Rocketeer and Ghost World would be on mine, probably. I'd have to think of a third one.
Yeah.
300 was, I think, on mine.
The CGI Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Crow. Having trouble with the third.
I don't know if it's going to hold up, but I really, really liked it when I saw it. I might put Sin City on that list too. I really liked the first movie. Yeah, that was very.
I haven't seen The Crow since the theater. If anybody has a Blu-ray they want to toss my way, I've
watched The Crow.
happily watch it again.
Would you like to borrow it?
I'd happily watch it again.
Watched The Crow numerous times.
I love The Crow. So good.
Maybe the first Hellboy movie.
Yeah, that was good.
Question from Ryan. He says,
Road to Perdition. I'll put that as my number 3.
That was all right. He says, which current creators could reach comic books god tier status like Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, and Siegel and Schuster? I think some from the late 80s, early 90s will reach it one day, but curious to hear your thoughts. I mean, obviously Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, I think those are kind of the big 3 from the 80s, early 90s. You will never reach the level of Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, and Siegel and Schuster, and Bob Kane, and Bill Finger. Like, you just never will. That is impossible to ever reach. Put like Akira Toriyama on there.
Will Eisner.
Put Will Eisner on there. Put Rumika Takahashi, maybe. I mean, some of the Japanese creators are obviously, ridiculously popular outside of American comics. Mobius, put Mobius on there. There's other non-American stuff, but modern day. I mean, I think Johns has for the real current stuff. In the last 20 years, I think Johns has the staying power. I think his books will continue to be popular as time goes on.
I think you can make an argument for Alex Ross in that his art has penetrated out into the culture beyond comics.
Yep. Bendis, because of how much of his stuff has been adapted into the movies, less so for his work and more for what he did. Bendis is really responsible for a lot of the stuff that happened in the Marvel Cinematic movies, both the X-Men, Spider-Man with the Ultimate Universe, and then the MCU with New Avengers.
I mean, I kind of feel for art. Jim Lee is up there.
Yeah. Jim Lee will go down as one of the greatest artists in the industry. But regardless of what you think of him on a personal level, I mean, very few creators have had the reach he has.
Yeah.
And just the ability to define, at this point, 30 years of comics almost. Yeah. It's tough. I mean, it's going to be a while, I mean, you want to say Tom King, you want to say someone like Dan Slott or Scott Snyder, right?
It's too soon to.
But we just don't know.
Like
yeah. I mean, there's been great creators I liked that sort of burned out and went away and did other stuff.
Well, but I mean,
maybe Mike Mignola.
I mean,
he's had to reach outside of comics.
I would definitely include like Claremont, and it's not to say that I think everything Claremont has done has been amazing, but even with like older creators. There's plenty of stuff Stan Lee wrote that I would not put high on a list.
Yeah, sure, of course.
But I kind of feel like Claremont's stories continue to have sort of impact and resonance. Like, if you want to talk about writers who have done something in the industry that has good staying power and kind of continues to touch comics and stuff, I think you definitely look to like Claremont and even Wade. Wade has done a ton of stuff that still today gets referenced. I mean, when we start talking Legion, Wade's name came out how many times? And for Justice League, for Flash, for...
Yeah.
I stepped away for a second. What about Brubaker?
Outside, I mean...
Brubaker's a little tougher. Like, I do think Brubaker has the potential, especially with like Winter Soldier and that stuff making it to the movies, but I don't necessarily feel like his stuff, like...
I think outside of Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman, it's a big drop, even to Morrison. I think
we
it's a
can reach
big
back
drop.
into the 80s.
Yeah, well,
I was misunderstood. I thought the question was about now.
He said now, but he said there's some creators from the 80s and early 90s that he could see hitting that
Frank
status.
Miller.
Sure, Frank Miller. I think Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman are if Kirby, Siegel and Schuster, if they're A, Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman are B. Frank Miller, Grant Morrison, a lot of these guys, Claremont, Jim Lee. That's your
I put Frank Miller in B. I think with Dark Knight changed the industry.
And his Daredevil stuff.
So
Plus
for me,
300 plus Sin City out into the.
Yeah, I don't know.
To me, it becomes a question of quantity to a degree.
And I think Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman have that quantity.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
What about Rucka?
Frank Miller, I do agree about Daredevil. I do agree about Dark Knight in year one. But I'm not sure, his reach. I understand about 300, but 300 kind of came about because of Sin City and, what was being done there. And I kind of feel like Sin City came and went. I don't think people, outside...
No, outside.
Sin City's popularity has fallen drastically. It's something I don't necessarily. I mean, when I read them, they were amazing, but it's not something I'm recommending to people.
No.
As I said, it feels like it came and went. Versus Dark Knight has sort of stood the test of time, and so has the Daredevil run has stood the test of time.
The tough thing with this question is that A tier laid the foundations of the whole industry,
and that's why you're never going to hit that.
No.
And set the foundation in such a quantity, for the most part, that it becomes confusing when you get outside, well, who created this? Because when you start naming stuff that was created by these people, the list just goes on and on and on to the point where you get to something where it's like, was that them or was that
it's one of those things where, and Charlie, I think this is a nod to something you'll appreciate. It's Paul Dini. He's one of the last guys to really create something that's had such a lasting impact.
Well, plenty of people have created characters that have lasted years, but
I'm saying with impactful.
These these creators, Kirby and Stan Lee and Siegel and Schuster and Bob Kane and all that. They created the entire industry. There's only one Walt Disney. There's just not. There were a couple other guys who were doing animation at the time to some minor degree, but there's really only one or two that created the basis for everything that came after. When you go to movies, there's only a couple guys that did everything. It is impossible to ever hit that status, right? There's no other. What's his face? Elon Musk is not on the same level as the Apple guys or
there's Disney and there's Don Bluth, and you're not going to argue those two guys because they both created animated characters are the same level.
Right. Let's move on. A couple more questions here. From Casey, he says, how long should Disney wait to reboot the MCU?
The MCU?
Yeah. Do they ever reboot?
Are they rebooting it?
No, he's just asking. How long should they wait? When do they reboot the MCU?
Oh, I don't think you reboot it. I think you can just
keep going
fold right into the next phase.
It's just the James Bond, just a new Iron Man, new Cap.
No. Reboot with those same characters.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, when we say reboot, that's what I assume you do. You reboot, you start over.
I was thinking he was meaning instead of going to the next phase, just restart it.
Yeah.
I would put the X-Men on ice for 5 years minimum.
I think that's the plan.
I don't know. I'm really curious to see where things go from here because I do feel like they've done such a good job of building up the Marvel Universe in sort of the cinematic form that at some point there's going to be this is the finale.
It's like how many volumes of Hellblazer can DC put out before people are just like, yeah, I'm done.
Well, when you start going to the movies, the Marvel movies, and this may be what he's getting at, Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, Avengers is a very different slate than Shang-Chi, The Eternals, Doctor Strange 2.
Nope. Guardians kind of throw this all out of the whack.
Yes.
Out of whack, but
Guardians was the little side. This is going to be a whole slate where Guardians is like the
they're all
template.
The side story.
And right now it is unheard of for movies that are not Avengers to hit the billion mark.
Yeah. Well,
and I think you're going to see a decline, not a decline to the point where I don't think they're profitable anytime soon, but I think you are going to see that decline where your average, like,
you're not going to get Captain Marvel or Black Panther numbers.
Yeah. And I think you're going to reach a point where they're going to need to start pulling back some of the budget of some of these movies and that kind of stuff a little bit more.
Even look at Aquaman and Shazam, right? Aquaman, for whatever reason, despite being quote-unquote kind of lame from people, besides what some people think, this is a character that's had an ongoing series basically since the character's creation, right? Shazam is a character that in comics has never quite clicked permanently, right? Look at the movies. Aquaman makes $1 billion plus. Shazam can't crack 400 million, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it is.
Well, no, but
Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, the Avengers, the X-Men, Spider-Man. These have remained constants in comic books since their creation. The Eternals, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, they come and they go. And again, it is not a one-to-one because obviously Guardians.
It's always the character that you have like 4 copies of the action figure because nobody wants to buy it.
But I think there is a little bit of truth in those characters. Just might not. Ant-Man obviously didn't perform in the same level. Black Panther and Captain Marvel are exceptions to the rule, right? But I think there's maybe a little truth that those characters.
Yeah, but
it's just not quite the same. You're gonna have a couple that succeed. You're gonna have a couple that work. But you've got to have some really committed fucking people. To make like a third Shang-Chi movie work. Like, where are you going at that point?
Kevin Feige and Disney have to decide: are you comfortable? Because you guys are basically sleeping in a money castle right now with what you've done. Okay, so are you comfortable? They've shown they're comfortable taking risks. Great. Are you comfortable with not every 4 out of 5 movies on your slate make Ant-Man money instead of Avengers money?
Right.
Because Shang-Chi's I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not meaning to trash these. I'm totally curious about an Eternals movie.
Yeah.
That could be amazing. I don't think that's going to do Black Panther money. Yeah. I don't think anybody would, even in the halls of Marvel, would think that.
And I'm really curious, and it's the same way I'm curious about the second Wonder Woman movie at this point. Like, there's I was concerned going into like Age of Ultron the same way, and if I want to say Age of Ultron performed less than Avengers.
I think so.
Yeah, it was just slightly less.
Yeah, the way some of this stuff goes is like Avengers was the big first. And I think for that experience and that spectacle, it adds a fair amount of money to it. By the second Avengers, while I still like Age of Ultron, and I know people can argue one way or another, but it didn't make Avengers money. But then you kind of take the Iron Man 3 example. Iron Man 3 coming out right after Avengers cracked the $1 billion ceiling again. It's a weird kind of return on some of these movies and stuff where they've done a very good job building towards certain things, so they've been rewarded very well. But now we've had the payoff with Endgame.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people feel like people are curious where they go next because they don't have they're building up to this next right now.
Galactus.
They're not building to Galactus now. We'll find out in the next couple of movies. But at this point, there is not, for your average moviegoer, we're back to not knowing what to expect.
Right.
Yeah.
But what you're coming out with isn't top tier Cap and
that's the thing.
Iron Man.
For the most part,
you're coming into this unknown with Shang-Chi and Guardians being the top now,
which is Guardians is 3 or 4 years away.
Yeah.
After Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
The Suicide Squad.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, no,
and Birds of Prey.
I'm super curious to see where things go now.
Final question from Ornery Duke. A says, did you catch the new season of Krypton? What are your thoughts on where they're going this season? Will it be more Zod focused than Brainiac? So I've only seen the first episode. Did episode 2 air?
2, I think, is aired, yeah.
I'm still catching up on season 1.
It aired yet last night? Or?
I don't remember. So I watched the first episode. Man, I still really like Krypton. Their take on Lobo is really good. I'm not a big Lobo fan.
And you heard they are spinning off to a Lobo series now.
I really want to see where they go with that. That might be a little too early. We'll see. But he's a very fun Lobo, and Bastich and Main Man and all the keywords you want to hear Lobo say. I know some people have a little problem with his accent, but he's got this like really weird, like kind of half Irish accent, but I think it really works for Lobo. I was not expecting it, and it kind of caught me off guard. I'm used to like kind of the gruff, kind of American animated cartoon Lobo voice, but I mean, everyone in Krypton speaks with
so hoity-toity,
alien British.
Yeah, alien
so,
British.
To me, the real guttural Irish kind of.
I think that's the one thing I don't like about the show is
angry accent.
Zod sounds wrong.
Oh, I
love Zod. So he's awesome, but there's part of me that's just like, it's just not deep enough. Like it's just not.
Oh, I mean, he's not Terrence Stamp, but I think it's a good. His voice is totally fine. But I love
Kevin's over here like
that first episode was
convulsions.
Great. That first episode
it's not
was great.
convulsion. I haven't. I'm way behind on Krypton. I can't comment.
Yeah,
I haven't. I'm caught up. I watched season 1. Thought it was awesome. Can't wait to watch season 2.
I mean, the whole season. I mean, we have Brainiac, Zod,
and
Doomsday, and Lobo. We're all going to be villains of this season. They're just like, well, we have no idea if we're getting a third season, so throw everything in, right? And yeah, good first episode so far. So,
well, they did a really good job in the first season just building up those because they were building up Brainiac. Yep. Brainiac was the main bad, and then Zod kind of snuck in there.
Yeah,
and Doomsday was introduced.
Surprise at the end.
Yeah. A surprise at the end. So it's like it's only natural that we introduced, so we're going to run with it, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, but a big part of the season is going to be searching for Doomsday. But it seems like he shows up actually, probably, I think, pretty soon. Yeah, I like it. It's cool. I want to see. I definitely want to see where they go. And I mean, it's Adam Strange, even though it's kind of a Booster Gold take on Adam Strange. I still really like it. So, Kevin,
I'm way behind. I can't really comment. I just remember the Adam Strange with the hoodie.
Yeah,
and I just kind of like, oh.
It worked.
Okay, I'm not commenting.
I mean, we get at least a brief conversation.
I see him with the cap and the hoodie, and I always think Jeff Johns.
Well, yeah. We get a brief conversation with Alana and what's her dad's name? Sardath.
Yeah.
At least I believe the finale of last season.
Yeah, it's
like last or second to last episode.
He's in that weird,
in
a tunnel
chamber or whatever
thing.
Yeah. But they at least acknowledge those characters. So to me, that's enough.
That's
cool.
a win.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like 20 seconds of Dazzler.
Was that the last question?
That's it.
You said there's a ton.
There is. Well, I mean, there's too many. We're already over.
Kevin wants to end on a better
Can I do a random pick?
Yeah, of course.
Green Lantern number
8.
The one that came out last week.
With
Green Arrow.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet.
You haven't read it?
No, it's like literally, I think like 2 books down on my stack.
Okay, I have...
Spoil. Go. I already flipped through it.
Okay. God bless Grant Morrison, because this issue features a return of a character I literally never thought I would see again if I lived to be 1,000 years old.
Who is it?
Zine Arrow. Xeen.
Okay.
So pre-Marvel Comics, when Kirby was working for DC in the 50s and he was doing Challengers and Green Arrow, there's a story where Green Arrow and Speedy go to another dimension where it's like Gulliver's Travels. They're tiny. Well, reverse Gulliver's Travels. Yeah. They're tiny and everybody else is giant. And the superhero of that dimension is this giant Green Arrow, but he's named Zine Arrow.
Okay.
That alien is in this issue of Green Lantern, and it is amazing.
Do Zine Arrow and the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh team up?
Right?
I fucking need that.
Right? Yes, that's all I want. That's my random pick. It's a standalone issue. You don't need to have read any other, but...
I've been doing back issue restock for Batman because Batman is California and we need to put an entire box on top of our shelves.
Yeah, we have a lot of Batman back issues.
But we got some Morrison stuff in from our collection, and I was flipping through. I was like, "Hey, look, it's your favorite Batman, Ryan!"
Hell yeah, Zur-En-Arrh.
Amazing,
incredible.
That's amazing.
But every issue of Morrison's Green Lantern has been a standalone story, but there is this arc in the background, and it's very interesting.
So glad I dropped that book.
And this is just on Earth. This is just Green Lantern, Green Arrow teamed up for a one and done Earth adventure, except it happens to feature, I can't even believe it, Zine Arrow in a... Oh, it's just like, I can't even tell you when I saw, because he's giant.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they come across a giant arrow like stuck into a building. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then you turn the page and there's a giant hat with a feather in it. I'm like, no way. And sure enough, there he is.
Well, if there's one thing Grant Morrison loves, it's 50s comic books.
Yeah.
Just the weirdest ideas. So. It does not surprise me that he pulled something like that out. Look for the first appearance of Zine Arrow on eBay and see what it goes for. So.
Yeah, it's in Adventure Comics.
Oh, nice.
That's where Green Arrow was appearing back in those days. He wasn't good enough for his own book yet.
Yeah.
XEEN.
Well, that's we've mentioned this before. Like, Green Arrow he has to be the oldest character that never had his own book, because he didn't get his own series till the miniseries till the 80s, right? The mid 80s, post crisis.
Mike Grell.
There's a Zine Arrow Earth 1.
That's him.
And his first appearance was Adventure Comics 253.
What year?
1958.
Yep.
Apparently his last appearance was the same issue.
Yeah, until now. That's what I'm saying.
So
God bless Morrison.
It hasn't been updated then.
Like, how long has he been waiting to pull? I'm going to put Zine Arrow in a story someday. I'm just waiting for the right. Wow.
That's why I love Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
He's a superhero protector of Dimension Zero.
Okay, yeah. That's it. It's not another planet. It's another dimension where they went. Yeah.
Oh, they kept his giant arrow as a trophy in the Arrow Cave.
Yeah, this is back when they had an aeroplane, an arrow car, an arrow cave.
It's like a giant
They
penny.
brought that back in Kevin Smith and Brad Meltzer's run on Green Arrow.
Yeah.
I wonder if they had the giant arrow in there.
Oh.
Maybe they did. All right.
Go look at my absolute.
We are going to wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you survived Dark Phoenix. And if you didn't see it, well, again, you probably have lost your chance to see it in the theater. It's probably gone by this
Would you say it's
weekend.
worth going to a theater to see?
No.
I wouldn't either.
No, I mean, if you weren't there the first 2 weeks, you're not going to see it. There's no point. Yeah. I mean, like I said, nice to see these guys out, but just very mediocre film at best. Let's thank our good friends that back us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy for the high-level backers. We get some nice bonuses for you every month. We like to promote yourself, your work, your material, your podcast, anything you want. So if you go over to patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy, kick us a couple bucks. Thank our good friend Julian Titus of the Nerds With All Pants podcast. That's at pixelbit.com, PIXLBIT. Or just look up Nerds Without Pants on your podcast app of choice. Jody Lawson has canon the Triad Comics Anthology at triadcomicsstudios.com. Lots of good comics on there. Go check out their books. To thank our good friend Sam Che, Joe Duff, Craig Anderson over at CraigPAnderson.com, Andrew Nelson Mendez. He's at Recovery of an Anime Junkie podcast. If you got some anime in your life, go listen to that. Page Turner is a comic book podcast. That's at pageturnerspodcast.libsyn.com. Talk more about stories on there. So if you're a big fan of listen, whatever comic they're dealing with of the week. Mm-hmm. Our good friend Tyler Willits over at Thursday Thunderdome. That's at Thursday T-Dome on Twitter or ThursdayThunderdome.com. And Ryan Marling, he's over on YouTube at tinycc/Ornery Duke, ORNERYDUKE. He has a Pokemon unboxing video series on YouTube. Man, kids in their unboxing videos, they love them. If you've got kids that like Pokemon, go watch Ryan open some Pokemon packs on YouTube, and then your kids will be harassing you to buy them Pokemon cards so they can open them.
Or they'll get their fix and they won't need to do it.
That possibly as well. ComicConspiracyPodcast.com, Geekbox.net, and iTunes is where you can find all our previous episodes. Oh, sorry. ComicConspiracyPodcast.com, Geekbox.net, and the Apple Podcast app. Because isn't iTunes gone now? Isn't iTunes dead?
Oh,
It's gone yet.
Who knows?
Going. All right. Rate and review us, please. That always helps people find us. At least that's what we're told. YouTube.com/Comics Conspiracy is where you can find all our episodes. We post them on YouTube as audio files. No video of our lovely faces.
No,
however,
because we have faces for radio.
We do. If you want to listen to us, YouTube is your. If you're always on the tube. If you're on your Nintendo Switch, you can use the YouTube app on there and listen to us on your Nintendo Switch. The Comic Conspiracy at geekbox.net. That is, you know what? Fucking hell.
What?
Oh, Jesus, I forgot. Julian Titus had sent us a long email.
Oh, we have an email.
No. Julian, okay, I'm sorry, Julian.
No, get back here. Let's go. Come on.
Julian,
no, this is why people go,
Julian
how
Titus
the F
should know better than that.
15, 20 minutes on this podcast?
He did not send us an email. He sent me a DM instead of an email.
Yet you still...
Julian, I'm going to read this next week.
I'll get
do
it now. Do it now. Charlie's coming back.
Digital.com, digital.comicsconspiracy.biz. That is where, for the next few months, you are able to purchase your digital comics through us. Unfortunately, that service will be going away. We'll be talking about that probably next week a little bit more. But for now, if you buy your digital comics through us, digital.comicsconspiracy.biz is where you can do that. And, of course, comicsconspiracy.biz is where you can buy your physical comic books. We do a lot of mail order. And, if you don't want to buy it digitally, buy it through there because we'll ship them to you. Conspiratobrock.com. That is Brock's blog, video pull list, and unboxing video series. You can go over there and watch Brock do his thing. Wanders in the Fourth Dimension podcast. That is Charlie's Doctor Who podcast. And, of course, Etsy.com/shop/Leanne Hill Art. That is my wife, Leanne's Etsy store. You can go on there and purchase some of her art. We also carry it all here. And I've actually put up maybe a fourth of it on our website. I'm slowly getting it up. So at comicsconspiracy.biz, you can also buy it there as well. If you're on Twitter, so are we. Ryan Higgins Ryan, that is myself. Brock is Brock Sager. Charlie is Insanity and Chaos. Kevin Sharp is That Kevin Sharp. And the store is Comics Con Store. Please go follow us all. Thank you very much. And, of course, check out Geekbox. We just did our E3 wrap-up episode last week. Came out a little bit late, but we talked all about E3.
Nintendo wrap-up?
Well, that was a big part of it. That's why we waited. But we had more stuff to talk about E3 this week. So if you want to hear us talk about video games, and we talked a little bit about Dark Phoenix, if you didn't get quite enough of that. Also, Comedy Button and Manga Machinations and Infinite Binge. Those are some other podcasts worth checking out that our friends do. So please give those a listen. Go check out those as well. Thank you guys all very much. We will be back next week for a new episode. We'll see you then.